August 1997. William and Harry were enjoying their summer holiday with Prince Charles at Balmoral, the Queen's Scottish retreat. Royal homes and estates are part of the heritage they share with Charles and the royal family. Even before their parents' divorce, they had grown accustomed to separate times with their father and mother. Now they were looking forward to seeing her again, but within days, their lives would be altered forever by her tragic death. William and Harry were left with treasured memories of a wonderful mother. Diana had enriched their childhood with experiences and adventures beyond those of any previous royal generation. The world mourned her passing with an unprecedented outpouring of grief. Millions of comforting tributes helped give William and Harry the courage to face the ordeal of her funeral. Diana's brave young princes walked with pride and dignity behind her coffin on its solemn passage to Westminster Abbey. It was their own decision.
I think it was very interesting on the day of her funeral when they walked so solemnly behind her coffin with their father and their grandfather and their uncle, to see how the younger boy, Harry, in a way carried himself with a great deal more presence and conviction than the older boy, William, whose head was bowed almost virtually throughout, and clearly they both felt it equally. But Harry, the younger one, seems in some ways a tougher character. Also, interestingly, she was very consciously training up Harry, the younger one, as a sort of support system for his brother, because she knew from what she'd seen and herself lived through that life was actually going to be tougher for William. He was going to be the one in the focus the whole time. It would be quite tough for Harry, but he wasn't centre stage. And touchingly, they're very close, those two boys, and I think one thing their mother had achieved, although her work was interrupted, was to make them a mutual bonding, that be able to help each other out in situations like that in the future.
Her children's flowers reminded the watching world of their dreadful loss. There would be no more whitewater rides, trips to theme parks or holidays in exotic locations. Diana had refused to bring up her sons hidden away in palace nurseries and schoolrooms. She had opened up for them a world unseen by earlier royal children. On visits like this to Niagara Falls, they saw, learned and explored as Diana prepared them for the duties their royal birth would demand in adult life. The mother who filled their lives with fun also took them on more private journeys, visiting the sick and the disadvantaged, who formed the focus of her charity work and campaigns. She gave William and Harry challenging experiences to offset the wealthy, privileged world of the royal family with its trappings of grandeur. Diana was the most tactile and demonstrative of royal mothers. She missed her sons badly when foreign tours kept them apart. Ignoring protocol, she would run ahead of Prince Charles, unable to contain her delight at being reunited with her boys after the inevitable absences created by royal duties. She once said, "We have an obligation to care for our children, to encourage and guide, nourish and nurture, and to listen with love to their needs in ways which clearly show our children that we value them. They, in turn, will then learn how to value themselves." Charles, too, believed in showing warmth and affection to the children, often publicly. His childhood had been blighted by too many parental absences and by a too rigid and formal nursery schedule. Charles and Diana's obvious love for their boys was not enough to keep the family together. However, the love they received from both parents in the past may prove a sound basis for emotional stability now their mother is gone.
There is no substitute for affection. for those children, and I think they've had a really good grounding of it, despite the traumas that they've been through so young. Some people say she almost smothered them when they were little, but because her marriage wasn't working, she put all her emotions and love into those two children. And anyone else that intruded on her space as a mother, she didn't like.
Diana was aware of the royal traditions her sons would grow up with, but she also wanted them to be modern boys, streetwise in appearance. Seen on many happy family outings with their mother, their casual look was in keeping with a more ordinary childhood. When royal duty called, their appearance had to reflect the more formal side of their upbringing. Within their blood runs 1,000 years or more of British royal history. They are the next generation of one of the world's most famous families, who have been trained from the cradle to behave well in the public eye. In 1985, they joined their parents on Britannia for a cruise after Charles and Diana had made an official visit to Italy. William, then nearly 3, had already learned how to perform as a junior royal. Harry would follow in his footsteps, but without the pressure of being heir in line to the throne.
Charles used to have a bath with William. There's one lovely story that Diana told about she couldn't find them anywhere, and eventually she went in the bathroom and there they were with all these enormous bubbles everywhere, sort of singing and playing. Charles is like a new man father. I mean, Betty Parsons, who was the midwife who helped Diana with all her prenatal exercises, also used to talk to Prince Charles, and she gave him a book called The Expectant Father, which he devoured. So he was really, really interested and keen, and in fact, so much so, it used to irritate Diana. She used to say, anyone would think he was having the baby, not me.
Prince William was born on June the 21st, 1982, less than a year after his parents' wedding. Diana was almost 21. His christening in the ornate setting of Buckingham Palace underlined his special position. Diana's natural reaction to calming her agitated son showed her gentle, caring attitude to motherhood. This was not the way of the Windsors, who had usually passed crying babies to their nannies. William's christening was held on the Queen Mother's 82nd birthday to show the link between the 4 royal generations. William was the first royal baby to accompany his parents on a major tour. In April 1983, he went to Australia, where he stayed on a special base with his nanny Barbara Barnes, while Charles and Diana undertook an intensive program of duties.
Well, according to Diana, it was because the Australian Prime Minister invited her to bring her child along, which and she thought that was a wonderful idea, and so did Prince Charles, and so did the Queen, so they took him along. I mean, he wasn't with them all the time. And she also said it was a great help because it gave her something to talk about when she met all the crowds, and she could talk about William and what he was doing, and you know, he was just beginning to crawl. So it was a great bonus.
At first, William didn't mind the photo calls that marked the milestones of his infancy. After his first crawl-about, he was ready for bolder steps. Impish and appealing, he had a natural flair in front of a camera. He seemed to enjoy the attention he received from massed ranks of photographers, recording the footballing skills of a future king. Diana and Charles agreed to these pose sessions, hoping to preserve some privacy at other times. They knew that the public wanted regular updates on William's progress. His first teeth, his early steps and words, his amusing habits of hiding behind doors and of flushing shoes down the lavatory were all dutifully recorded by a watchful press for an eager public. Charles understood the importance of creating a good image for the Waleses, first as a couple, then as a family. Suffering from bulimia, Diana later referred to these early years as the Dark Ages, although publicly there was little evidence of her inner misery.
In the early years of their marriage, I constantly saw the Prince patting Diana, encouraging her, whispering in her ear, telling her she was doing a great job, you know, patting her on the bottom and looking at her. And they'd look at each other the way lovers do and laugh and smile at each other, you know, always gazing into each other's eyes. There's no doubt about it. They were a great couple in the beginning.
The summer of 1984 marked a period of relative contentment as they awaited the birth of their second child. Diana knew from her doctors that the baby would be a boy, but she kept Charles in the dark. When Harry was born on September the 15th, Charles was said to be disappointed that his second son wasn't a girl. Behind the glowing pride of a radiant young mother was a troubled princess facing the disintegration of her marriage, just as her family life should have been blessed and happy. Despite their growing friction, Diana tried to share some of her husband's pastimes, making them family occasions for their sons to enjoy. Her affection for her children was always evident. She once said, "Hugging has no harmful side effects. If we all play our part in making our children feel valued, the result will be tremendous." William and Harry were introduced early to polo. At these matches, Sarah Ferguson, daughter of his polo manager, was often present. Soon she would become the Duchess of York, mother of their younger cousins, and a loving aunt to the royal princes. William and Harry can look back on many happy times they spent with her and Diana. She may offer a special comfort to them in sharing memories of those lost days. Summers also meant holidays with the Spanish royal family at their Majorcan retreat. The Wales family went there from 1986 to 1988, when Charles and Diana were putting on a show of togetherness to disguise their separate lives and their separate loves. Going to Majorca and missing part of the Balmoral break had been Charles's idea. Although King Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia and their family were warm and hospitable, Diana felt ill at ease. Parental tensions were running high, but the young princes were already adjusting to their situation and their exalted position, where they were constantly photographed and commented on. William and Harry were growing into well-behaved youngsters who knew that princes were expected to be perfect in public.
All the royal children have the most perfect manners. Partly because they have the best choice of nannies to start with. And William, when he was a little boy, I remember Barbara Barnes saying, he used to open doors for women and say sir to gentlemen. That's when he was 8 years old, for goodness sake. They have beautiful manners, and they are very considerate to other people, which is something you perhaps don't get so much in ordinary children.
Of course, there were rare lapses, and the culprit would be quickly and firmly pulled back in line. Diana's boys adapted quickly to school life, starting at a kindergarten where they mixed well with other children. Like their father, both boys showed a talent for the stage. They were allowed to play on Granny's fire engine at Sandringham, in their best clothes. The boys were at ease with their father, even when he was nursing a painful broken arm. There were many endearing moments when Charles welcomed their company and their inquisitiveness. Harry's parents felt that second-born should never mean second best, and Diana called him a complete joy. While William was more tuned into Diana's wavelength, Harry was always very close to Charles.
In a conversation I had with the princess not long before she died in Kensington Palace, she did bring up the question of her concerns for Harry, in that William would always be the one, the centre stage one who was going to be king. She was worried, for instance, rather touchingly, I thought, that William would get all the girls. All the girls would go for Wills, and poor Harry, who's only a couple of years younger, would be left out. And so she was already kind of taking steps to try and make sure that they were treated equally, even though in royal standing terms, William would always be number one.
As Charles and Diana grew apart, her sons became her gentlemen escorts for some evening engagements. Diana loved to show off her handsome boys, and they were thrilled to be seen with their glamorous and stylish mother. By now, their royal training enabled them to cope with more adult occasions. Every year, the boys were on display with their royal relatives on the palace balcony to celebrate the Queen's official birthday. The Yorks' first child, Beatrice, enjoyed playing with her cousin Harry. Together with her younger sister Eugenie, they became substitute daughters for Diana. She never had the little girl she wanted, but she resisted the temptation to mollycoddle her sons. Diana encouraged their boyish preferences for sports, such as skiing, go-karting, rafting and swimming. While hunting and shooting remained their father's territory, water sports were provided by a series of sunshine holidays with their mother. Differences between the two boys' personalities began to develop. William was the quieter, more intuitive. Harry, the more mischievous.
Life is going to be much tougher for him than it is for Harry, because he's going to be the future king after his father. He's going to be the centre of attention. And I know Diana worried about that. And she was training up Harry as a kind of support system for his brother. They are very close. Life won't be too easy for Harry either, especially because I think in that period the monarchy's going to be, quotes, modernised, which means very slimmed down. Prince Charles wants it to be just the monarch and his heir. So Harry, unlike some of current royals, probably could go out and get a proper job if he wanted to, and I think the British people would approve of that and lead a relatively normal life. For William, whatever happens to the monarchy, life is always going to be like it is for his mother. Hounded, harassed, pursued, privately as well as publicly. His misfortune as well as his good fortune being that he looks rather like her, and he's her legacy made flesh.
Their school days were some of the happiest of any royal children. From kindergarten they moved to Weatherby's day school before boarding at Ludgrove. Diana was always present for school sports days. They were timetabled in her diary before any other duties. Whatever the demands on her, or however difficult her private life, she was always ready to cheer on her boys. She was no slouch when it came to the fiercely contested mothers' races, her exercise and fitness routine usually ensuring a royal winner. Win or lose whatever the outcome of the children's races, Diana would always reward them with a cuddle. As a result of her loving approach and her interest in all their activities, her sons felt cherished. More than anything, she believed in the giving and receiving of affection.
I don't think you can spoil children with too much love and attention. I think that's a myth. But I found that she didn't spoil them in terms of being a sensible mother. She was very good at nagging them about their manners. And as a result, they're both beautifully mannered boys, and, you know, being tidy, because Diana was fanatically tidy. And so she was always reminding them to pick up things. That's the sort of things that mothers do. I mean, that's normal. To have somebody come along and nag you, I think is keeping you in touch with reality. You know, life is not easy, and you have to learn to look after yourself. And I think she gave a lot of that. She was a very well-balanced mother in that sense.
To achieve her objective of well-adjusted children, Diana allowed them to follow some distinctly non-royal pursuits. Racing buggies in America was considered dangerous and not in keeping with the House of Windsor's constrained attitude to child-rearing. Diana was sometimes criticised for lavishing too many treats on her children, too many trips to theme parks or too many expensive holidays. She may have overcompensated for the missing stable domestic background that she had sought to provide and had failed. Diana was also accused of upstaging her husband by her displays of affection and by her action-packed adventures, which made him look a stuffy, uncaring father. These sort of activities were good training for the family firm, as older members privately call the royal family. With the Queen Mother, their great-grandmother, William and Harry behave according to royal tradition. She is a consummate performer, never revealing a trace of her true feelings in public. Diana was wary of the Queen Mother and thought that she exercised too much influence over Charles. However, there were times Diana could not avoid her and had to make polite conversation. The Queen had insisted on taking Harry in hand. His early liveliness was curbed and he was quietly groomed for his eventual role. He soon formed a close relationship with the Queen and also with Prince Philip, gentler and kinder with his grandchildren than with his own children. At Christmas and Easter, the Queen wanted her immediate family around her to celebrate those special days.
The Queen's always played a very important role with William, and Diana told me that William gets on very well with his grandmother, and she was delighted about that. And for the past few years, the Queen has been having tea with William on a Sunday, you know, because he just has to go across the bridge from Eton. So he'll go round to Windsor Castle with his detective, and when he walks in the room, her face lights up and they sit down and they chat about this and that. And she tells him what she's been doing and who she's met. And he tells her, now this is a tradition. that the monarch passes down, you know, through the generations, her wisdom. And there was a time when the Queen hardly saw William, so she's delighted to have formed this bond with him. And surprisingly enough, Prince Philip is very close to William too. So he has the great support of his grandparents.
Those family gatherings helped build what Diana called platforms of mutual affection, which will help William and Harry through the inevitable feelings of bereavement and what might have been. The royal family will have to cope with anguish and despair, which may return when triggered by places and events. The boys may turn to their older cousins, Princess Anne's children, Peter and Zara Phillips, who loved their Aunt Diana and also have happy memories of her good humour and her kind heart. But Peter and Zara are different. Much further down the line of succession, they will be allowed to have freedom in their choice of careers, while William and Harry have a narrower path ahead. Their mother, who was such a dynamic force in their lives, had tried to raise her sons in an imaginative way for a new millennium and a new style of monarchy. She wanted them to feel a sense of unity with ordinary people. Now her work will have to be completed by the family she sought to change.
Well, I think she felt that the Windsor family are very isolated, very cut off from real people and real life. And she's right, they are. You know, how often do you see Prince Charles in a supermarket? Does he know the price of a pint of milk? I'm sure he doesn't, and probably doesn't even know how to put petrol in his own car. So she was determined that her boys would not grow up like that. She wanted to keep their feet on the ground. So she used to take them to supermarkets, go shopping, take them to the movies, queue up at McDonald's and at fun fair, you know, leisure parks, all in a desperate attempt to give them some experience of the real world.
Diana's father, the 8th Earl Spencer, died in 1992, robbing William and Harry of an affectionate and down-to-earth grandfather. Diana said, "My father always taught me to treat everyone as an equal. I have always done, and I'm sure that William and Harry are the same." Christmases with their mother came to an end a few years ago, when Diana could no longer stand the strain of being with her estranged husband's family. After the divorce in 1996, there was little contact. With her unique elegance, she had been the star attraction on so many royal occasions. Then she became a semi-detached royal, an awkward situation for everyone, and one that would cause anxiety for her children. Yet it was Diana who instilled much of the basic royal training into her sons. The royal family benefited from her huge popularity, which was also being passed on to William and Harry. She taught them how to behave on walkabouts, how to shake hands, receive flowers, and how to conduct themselves under the spotlight. They simply had to follow her example. Impressing the Commonwealth, such as on this visit to Canada, was all part of the job. There is little doubt that Diana was used to enhance the prestige of modern royalty abroad. She had been the jewel in the crown, a shining, charismatic woman who had made the House of Windsor look stale. She desperately wanted to keep the best of its traditions while bringing it into line with a world ready to enter the 21st century. Diana was grooming her two boys through contact with the crowds who turned out in their thousands to see them. There may have been an element of rivalry with Charles, who never shared the easy rapport his wife did with the public.
You have to remember, because of their tender years, that actually half their lives had been blighted by the public warfare of their parents' very acrimonious divorce. It's tough enough for any kids if their parents split up at that age, but in the case of William and Harry, there was all sorts of public warfare, the dirty linen being hung out a bit too much, friends of Prince Charles, friends of Diana, mutual insults flying in the national press. The schools can say that they hid the newspapers from these boys, but we all know that other school children can be pretty cruel, and it's not always possible to do that. I think both parents, in their different ways, tried to nurse them through each stage, and we know that Diana kept going down to these schools to tell them what was going to happen next before they read it in the papers. But I think it's bound to have left scars on both of them. And it would be surprising if William and Harry, in their different ways, didn't grow up without certain emotional problems that any children who'd been through that at that age would have.
In public, Charles and Diana were obliged to put aside their differences and appear united. However, unity was short-lived, and even when visiting their son's school, Ludgrove, they would travel in different cars. Charles's admission of his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles placed the issue in the public domain. Their relationship may still affect the future of the monarchy.
What I'm told by people close to the prince is that they've never met Camilla. He's always kept those two areas of his life totally separate, partly because he knows the children are aware of Camilla's role in his life, and that he didn't wish to give them that additional problem of sorting out how they felt about her, this woman that had intruded into their family. So to prevent them being tortured about it all, or feeling divided loyalties, you know, torn between their mother and their father, he kept Camilla away from them, and I think that was a very considerate way to behave.
After the Wales' separation in 1992, William and Harry found their out-of-school time divided between both parents. Unlike the Yorks, who remained friends after their marriage breakup, the Waleses rarely met as a family. A pattern developed of one expensive holiday with Diana, followed by one with Charles. Ski trips at upmarket resorts such as Lech in Austria with Diana and Klosters in Switzerland with Charles in the winter would be followed by exclusive Caribbean retreats or cruising on luxurious yachts in the summer. Charles and Diana vied with each other to give their sons the best times, the most fun. It is a picture well known to many children of split families, and it was one that led to suggestions that William and Harry were being spoiled materially.
Well, I think it might appear to us that they're spoiled because they seem to have everything. Very difficult not to. I think any child of divorced parents is spoiled. You can't help it because the father gives them one thing and the mother gives them another, and it sort of almost subconsciously can become a competition.
If they competed for the love of their children, it was like all divorced parents. When holidays come around, they both try to give them great treats. Well, for instance, you know, that is the fantastic advantage of having a broken home. You get 2 lots of presents at Christmas, you get 2 lots of holidays. So it's not all bad, you know. For instance, the last year Diana was alive, the boys went on safari with their father, and shortly afterwards, or around the same time, they went to Barbuda in the Caribbean with their mother. Well, that doesn't sound bad to me.
A private holiday, particularly in a ski resort, soon became a press circus with 3 unwilling performers. To keep the peace, the royal party obliged with some controlled performances. Diana resented the constant intrusion of the paparazzi, keen to make a quick profit from snatched pictures of the princess and her sons. Ominously, Diana found herself in dramas and squabbles with pressmen, which tended to encourage rather than put them off. Situations could get out of hand. The boys, in particular William, dreaded these unseemly scuffles and confrontations.
I remember once a terrible fight in the street in Austria when William and Harry were caught right in the middle of it. 2 Italian paparazzi tried to, really get literally right up their noses. It was ridiculous. They're trying to take pictures from this sort of distance. And Diana objected and got very upset, and her policeman rugby tackled one of the photographers to the ground. Well, the 2 boys were standing there watching all this, and they became very concerned, and Diana had to hurry them away back to their hotel. And that was the sort of incident that I don't think they should have witnessed. They shouldn't have seen that. I mean, you can't plan when paparazzi are going to pop out of the woodwork and photograph you, but I think if Diana had taken it very calmly and kept walking, or, you know, stopped and let them get a picture, it would have been a lot easier on the children than having this big confrontation in the street.
Excuse me. Could I ask you to respect my children's space?
Yes, sir.
Because I brought the children out here for a holiday. We've had 15 cameras following us today. As a parent, I want to protect the children.
The effect on the boys was different. Harry was less troubled, but he refused to cooperate with the cameras if he sensed William was disturbed. The blood bond between the brothers was already strong, providing each other with an ally at times of stress. At boarding school for much of the year, they wanted to enjoy their time out with each parent without excessive intrusion. William began hiding his face in his hands. He was no longer the little boy who readily played at photo calls, but an anxious teenager needing space and privacy. He found little of either.
He doesn't like the spotlight, hates publicity, hates facing cameramen. And I think that's largely because he saw his mother involved in so many scuffles in the street with photographers, especially foreign ones, continental ones. William's problems with cameramen are so bad now that they've become a serious worry to the Queen. I remember talking to Diana about this once and saying, you know, she said, oh, William doesn't like being photographed. And I said, well, I'm sorry, it goes with the job. If you're going to be a king, you've got to be photographed. She said, oh, you're very hard. And I said, well, I think I'm just being realistic. You know, the sooner William gets accustomed to photographers, the better it's going to be easier for William.
This was advice the Queen Mother would have approved of. Always at ease in public, on her 95th birthday she kept William close by her, perhaps signalling her hopes for the monarchy through the teenage prince. She may have hoped that her confidence would rub off on the sensitive young boy.
Prince Charles decided to drive William back to school. We thought, well, it's not often you get Charles and William together. This is going to be a fantastic picture. And when William had to come out of the clubhouse and kiss his grandmother goodbye and walk out, he walked out backwards so we couldn't see his face. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he guided himself backwards, walking backwards towards the cameras. And then he leapt into the car and hid down in the well of the passenger seat, crouched right down, with his, all we could see was his back. I said, oh, William, this is ridiculous, you know, what stupid behaviour for a future king. Anyway, Prince Charles was waving and smiling, and he could have done with some help from his son. If his son had waved and smiled beside him, that would have helped Prince Charles's, you know, poor image quite a bit, but no. So Prince Charles drove off with this ridiculous situation of his son hiding and Prince Charles waving to everybody, and that's how he took him back to school.
Diana included friends of her boys on their holidays and outings. Sometimes she took the children of her staff, another change in royal policy, and one designed to keep William and Harry in touch with the real world. Her own need for freedom and to break away from protocol was evident. She had found palace restrictions suffocating and archaic. Diana was a very modern mother, one whose boundless energy and mischievous sense of humour will be dreadfully missed by her sons. Their young cousins may be an important part in bringing the much-needed element of fun back into William and Harry's lives. Beatrice and Eugenie were close to William and Harry and shared several holidays with them. On this unique occasion, William felt relaxed enough to answer questions, with his brother and cousins giving them moral support, responding to inquiries about their standards of skiing.
Well, improving is very good.
They're improving.
Very good skiers.
Richard, sorry, could you ask round here? Sorry. Rob,
Sorry.
they're not looking at you.
Yes, it'll be good fun. It'll be very good. Enjoy it.
Often criticised for his frequent absences as the boys were growing up, Charles did enjoy many happy times with them. He often forgot his princely dignity to clown around and share the rough and tumble that was denied him in his childhood. Diana once revealed that he loved the nursery routine and came home to bottle feed them as babies. Charles has instilled much of his love of the countryside in his boys. They've helped him with tasks on his farm and gardens. This paternal bond will form the basis to develop Charles's relationship with his sons, now that he has to be both father and mother.
Right, now we should sit here. Now, do you want us to turn around and go back or what?
No, stay here. Friends?
There will still be times when the boys need the guiding feminine touch of an elder sister figure rather than a mother substitute. Charles's friend Tiggy Leg Burke, who comforted them in the terrible days after Diana's death, may provide a gentle female influence to guide them into adult life. William joined Eton College in 1995. It's now a kinder, more supportive school than in days gone by. Charles and Diana were in complete harmony over their sons' schools. Charles chose Eton because he had hated his own school, Gordonston, so much. Eton College was also a place where generations of Diana's family had been educated. It also allows William easy access to nearby Windsor Castle, where the Queen often spends her weekends.
William is exactly like his father, very reserved, very thoughtful, conscientious. You know, he even sounds like his father now that his voice is broken. You'd swear you're listening to Charles. So, you know, he looks like his mother, but is his father's son. Harry doesn't suffer so much. Harry's rather thick-skinned. He's very like his mother. He quite revels in the spotlight and makes jokes about it. He's got exactly his mother's personality. He's very exuberant, very lively, fun-loving. Nothing phases Harry.
Diana often took the leading role with her elder son. She was guiding him towards his destiny as king. She wanted the monarchy to survive, modernised and in touch with its people, for William to take the throne in adult life. She believed she would never be queen and doubted that Charles would become king. She poured her hopes and ambitions into William.
He was, you know, barely 10 years old when she started revealing how she felt in front of him. And I think as a result, William's matured very fast. He's much more mature than most boys of 15. But that's also perhaps because of the daunting burden that lies ahead of him, the monarchy. And when you're 15, you might want to be a rock star or a nuclear physicist. You don't want your life mapped out for you. Kids of that age want to feel free. All their school friends are talking about, you know, I'm going to backpack around Africa or something, and he doesn't have that choice. It's very sad. I've heard Prince Charles talk about how awful it is to have your whole life mapped out for you, and I know William's a very sensitive boy, and he'll have absorbed a lot of that and think, well, I've got the same fate awaits me, sitting around waiting for my parent to die so I can become king. Who wants that? You know, it doesn't seem like a real job.
Eton's elitist image belies the fact that it is now a modern school. William's schoolmates are drawn from a wide section of society. They will choose their careers. His was prescribed by his birth.
I think one of the effects of him becoming much closer to his father and perhaps spending much more time with his royal grandparents is that William will be instilled with the same sense of duty that Charles was in his youth and will begin to take the duties very seriously, which is important because you occasionally wonder in a modern age in which we live with a Prime Minister who's pledged to modernise and change Britain, shed the past, shed ceremonial a bit, do unthinkable things. whether William, given that all he's been through, might say in the next few years, who needs this? The people don't seem to want us anymore. We're going into Europe. What's the monarchy's role? It would be very human, and people would understand if he said, I don't think I want to do this.
In January 1997, Harry went skiing with Charles, while William preferred to stay out of sight with his grandparents in the peaceful sanctuary of Sandringham. Second-born sons have become monarchs, notably George V and George VI this century. Although history often repeats itself, Charles and Diana wanted Harry raised as a support to his brother. Diana felt that William will come to the throne earlier than many expect. William is being groomed for his burden, while Harry can have more freedom ahead of him.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you.
Well, I hope that Harry is left alone by the press to explore life a bit during his youth and early years, and perhaps not to perform the traditional royal role of launching ships and unveiling plaques and living off the state and being a bit miserable, living in the goldfish bowl with strains on whatever marriage he makes. Maybe he could just go out and get a proper job.
William's confirmation in March 1997 was the last occasion the Waleses were together publicly as a family. His proud mother had already taken him to the threshold of adulthood. Through her, he had grown wise beyond his years.
I've heard it said that when she went down to see him at Eton and he heard the scrunch of the tyres on the gravel, he thought, oh God, because she always brought problems with her. She would want to share with him the fact that she was doing that Panorama interview, for instance, or something that she knew was coming up in the newspapers, and it was generally bad news. And I think that was quite tough on William. Harry was really too young, perhaps, to be included in some of that. By the end of her life, the unexpected end of her life, William did seem to have become a kind of senior advisor to his mother. Various big decisions, she told us, were down to him. The decision to surrender her title of Royal Highness without too much fuss, and of course we all thought he'd give it back to her when he became king. Apparently the decision to sell those frocks at auction at Sotheby's in New York this summer was his idea. She credited him with that in the foreword to the manual, the brochure for those frocks. Things like that. And he was still very young, really, to be doing things like that. Maybe it made him mature beyond his years. Maybe it just burdened him with a bit more to worry about than most mid-teenagers already have.
Diana took her sons to the royal tournament in London, part of the traditions and pageantry of the House of Windsor. Their friends went too. Diana encouraged friendship. She felt it was vital to have trusted companions. She would have wanted her beloved boys to find the lasting happiness that had eluded her. But who could compete with such a beautiful, loving mother?
And I know he likes blondes. He's always had a yen for blondes, just like his father. So, you know, it's going to be tough, isn't it? I mean, most boys like to get a girl just like their mother was. But for William, is there another girl out there who's, you know, maybe 12 or 13, 14 today, who's going to grow into somebody who's not only as beautiful as Diana, but as compassionate, as warm, have that magic with ordinary people? So, you know, it could be a long search for poor old William.
Let's just hope for both their sakes that those boys are given the freedom to make marriages that really work, find girls that they really care about, who really care about them, who are prepared to put up with all the inconveniences of being royal, as well as the considerable perks and home comforts of being royal, but above all that these marriages don't end in divorce like their parents, like so many royal marriages recently, because of the strains and because of the people in the House of Windsor being so cold to the people that marry into it. I think Diana's left enough with those boys for that not to be true of them.
Perhaps there is less pressure on William now without his mother around, although it sounds cruel to say it. But I think he's losing more than he's gained. I mean, he's losing that affection that she gave him, the constant support she gave him. She also treated him like a grown-up, which is what every teenager longs for. She'd ask his advice, say, well, William, what do you think about this? Should I do this or shouldn't I? Now, that is very flattering. And she didn't tell him what to do. I mean, Prince Charles is exactly the same. I've heard this for several years now, that whenever they decide that they're going to go somewhere or do something, or there's going to be a photo call, they say, well, we were thinking of doing this. What do you think, William? And they also ask Harry. And they ask for their input.
Childhood's end came with the news of their mother's death. For the rest of their lives, they will have a kaleidoscope of precious recollections of how good it was to be with her on those thrills and spills adventures, to share the daredevil rides, to be hugged and cuddled, to feel her warmth, her laughter. The end of her life created the beginning of another. The Diana phenomenon was born. Diana's legacy lives on in the remarkable effect she had on the spirit of our age. To change the way millions view their world as she did is a gift granted to very few. Her brother said at her funeral, "Diana was the very essence of compassion, of duty, of style, of beauty. We will feel cheated always that you were taken from us so young, yet we must all learn to be grateful that you came along at all. Your joy for life transmitted wherever you took your smile, and the sparkle of those unforgettable eyes, your boundless energy which you could hardly contain." Outside the gates of Balmoral, William and Harry, supported by the grieving royal family, saw the flowers and read the tributes to Diana. Those touching messages of condolence served as a rehearsal for the overwhelming sights that would greet them at Diana's funeral. Before that sad event, they would return to Kensington Palace, their mother's home, and witness the oceans of flowers left in loving memory of a princess who died too soon. The Queen would make her own tribute to Diana, saying, "I admired and respected her for her energy and her commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her 2 boys. Those boys will lean heavily on the royal family, but as they grow up into men, there may be questions that are hard to answer. How did Diana come to be divorced and all but excluded from the royal fold, although she had fulfilled every possible royal and maternal duty to perfection?" Millions watched the sad procession and emotional service, but no grief was more profound than her sons, the exceptional young men their enigmatic uncle Earl Spencer praised in his fiery address. To others she was an English rose, a people's princess, a queen of hearts, an icon, even a saint. To William and Harry, Diana was simply their mother, and they will never totally get over their loss. Over her coffin, Earl Spencer vowed that Diana's blood family would protect her sons from the excesses of protocol and press harassment. Charles will share his belief that William and Harry should not be totally immersed in duty and tradition, and that their souls should sing openly as Diana planned. He will continue her task of raising their sons to independence and maturity. It will not be easy.
London, and the stage is set for an outing of celebrities. Famous actors, actresses and rock stars mingle with the good and the great. If this is the face of the celebrity scene, can these people truly be described as the new royals in the face of competition from a real royal like Prince William? On the world stage, who can compete with a young man who is handsome, rich and a future king? Despite their millions, Posh and Bex aren't in the same league. And how does Hollywood stand up to competition from a young prince? In a recent popularity poll, Prince William beat Robbie Williams. If the British royal family is sharing the spotlight with a new celebrity culture, in Prince William they have a secret weapon. Relaxed and dressed in well-worn jeans, trainers, and a camel-coloured sweater over a blue shirt, Prince William took on the world's press for the first time at Highgrove, the family home. Sport had been William's mainstay at Eton School, where he excelled in the swimming pool, winning the 50-metre and 100-metre freestyle competitions at junior level. His passion for water polo had helped him to plan for an expedition.
I organised a water polo match and got sponsors and basically did the money that way. And I also raised money for a disadvantaged person to come on the expedition with me.
Had his father chipped in?
You might have helped slightly, not very much. So
I chip in all the bloody time.
He's great. He's that new injection of youth. He's that new injection of the new generation. He has the magic of Diana. He has the gravitas potential of his father. He has the longevity of reigning possibility of his grandmother, and he has the magic star quality of his great-grandmother, all really in bud, waiting to bloom.
This star quality made William number 6 in a poll of the top most eligible bachelors. Americans claim that he has the good looks of a film star, the charm of a young Robert Redford, and will go down great in America.
There was something very solid about having royalty as at the pinnacle of glamour, because there was a sort of solidity, a continuity about it. What you're seeing now is very much a kind of fly-by-night celebrity.
If the competition is fly-by-night, then it's certainly rich. At the last count, Posh and Becks were millionaires 50 times over, but they can still be proud of their humble beginnings.
They're from the people, but clearly not of the people, because they are now enjoying an enormous celebrity status. How long that celebrity lasts, of course, is another matter. The royal family tended to stay in the public eye for decades. The new kind of celebrity tends to be here, and then next week you've never heard of them again. I mean, it's a very, very, very fast turnover, probably reflecting the changes in society itself. The appeal of people like Posh and Beck is, first of all, they do something. One's a footballer, one's a singer. They've carefully marketed themselves as a glamorous couple, as glamour is perceived today.
The answer to Posh and Beckham's success is, in one word, synergy. They are both young and gorgeous and rich and successful. The two of them individually probably wouldn't be as powerful as both of them together. As a couple, they're knockout.
People make jokes about how stupid they are, but there they are. They've actually made a huge fortune between them. And they're a glamorous-looking couple.
The great advantage which Posh and Becks have over the royals is they can sell their story. OK or Hello will pay them a lot of money, and we're talking 6, sometimes 7-figure checks. If any of our royal family did that, there would be outrage and debate.
Princess Diana generated an aura of interest wherever she went. Has a famous footballer married to a pop singer filled the vacuum left by her?
I don't feel that Posh and Becks will last as long as Diana, even in her death. These stars are more transient. Diana was everlasting and still is. I don't think they've taken her place, but they are a sort of minor substitute. They are not the Burton Taylor, they are the sort of Robert Wagner, Natalie Wood.
Fueled by the demands of the celebrity media, even a mundane departure of a pop star at Heathrow is an event worth recording. This occasion, though, had an added news spin. Liam Gallagher had threatened to punch fellow performer Robbie Williams.
Is this going to beat me up?
That's right, yeah.
So I'm not angry enough to hit him.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's not my career that's going down the pan.
Robbie Williams is the ultimate performer, I think. He is young and good-looking and has been in the industry for a long time, so he knows what he's doing. He is very exciting and cheeky chappy, and he's a great, great star.
Great covers do wonders for circulation. To boost their sales, Vogue magazine put a naked Robbie on the front.
Sex sells everything. There's sex in the Olympics, there's sex in every advert on television. Everything seems to have a sexual connotation now, and Vogue have gone for it too, because they want to sell magazines. Sex sells.
When you see a magazine like Vogue getting into this kind of popular culture with Robbie Williams virtually naked on the front cover, you know that the rules by which celebrity is operated have changed. And Vogue are having to follow the rules. The rules are the newspaper, the magazine buying public. This is what they perceive as glamour. Vogue has always been associated with glamour. This is the new glamour.
Princess Diana was the glamorous face of royalty and paid a heavy price for the media's constant attention. Without her now, the royal family has retreated from the constant glare of publicity.
The royal family are delighted that the media are defocusing on them, if indeed they are. They don't want to be celebrities. They've never enjoyed the celebrity status. Most of them are not photogenic enough to be true celebrities. You're not going to get Prince Philip posing on the front of Vogue magazine, holding some naked girl in his arms as much as he might enjoy it.
Naked pop singers may have filled the vacuum left by Diana, but her legacy is with William, whose dashing good looks gaze out from magazine covers with groovy baby slogans reminiscent of an Austin Powers movie.
William will become a Vogue cover boy. He will be a cover boy. He's very handsome, he looks like his mother, and yet there's something rather mysterious about William and something that he doesn't let us know about him, which of course is intriguing. He's a Hollywood film star.
Prince William is a dashing young polo player. Is this another secret weapon in the armory of royal marketing?
The interest in royalty as a whole has gone down, with the exception of Prince William. I think tabloid editors now openly say royals don't sell copies, which is amazing. If you think 18 months ago there were people fighting to have a position outside a front door of a royal palace in order to get a picture or a quote or some little snippet of information in order to boost circulation of newspapers and magazines. That is not the case anymore.
A Heathrow departure for Britney Spears became a news event when her publicity machine linked the pop singer romantically to Prince William.
There is a sort of sense of who do we have next, and people have tried to make it fulfilled with film stars, Catherine Zeta-Jones or Uma Thurman, or even Kylie Minogue, or Britney Spears, God bless her, who's erroneously linked with Prince William. So there you have Hollywood and you have both sorts of royalty sort of connecting in a spurious way. It doesn't quite work. Of course she's hugely popular, Britney, and she's great, but she doesn't have that all-embracing popularity across ages, across nations, which royals did.
All-embracing royalty may be missing out, but the shenanigans of celebrity culture has an eternal fascination.
We all like to know what's going on and who's doing what to whom and in whose bedroom they're doing it. Yes, I think it's a big part of all our makeups that we really love to know all the sordid little details. And we might turn around and say, oh, I couldn't possibly watch or see or do anything like that, but we really do want it.
The Venice Film Festival, and the stars come out to promote their latest movie. What lies beneath this event is the promotion of a product created for people's enjoyment and satisfaction. The images are good, the message is clear. Sex was on display too in London, in front of a frenzied press. When Hugh Grant was apprehended by the Los Angeles Police Department in a well-publicized indiscretion with a prostitute in a car, the event had a very positive effect on the career of his partner, Liz Hurley. She has admitted that his misdemeanor rubbed off on her Hollywood career in a very positive way and made her more famous.
Newspapers have led the way in this redefining of what is important, what is significant. You could also argue just as easily that this is what the public now expects from their celebrity. They want to be told who the latest girlfriend is. They deem it to be of great importance. They are fascinated by the fact that Prince Charles, or indeed as will undoubtedly happen with Prince William, has a new girlfriend. When it does, it won't be the third story in a gossip column. It'll be the top story on the page one of half the newspapers of this country.
At Heathrow Airport, singer Diana Ross suffered the ignominy of being caught on camera after being detained by police.
The police were very good, but they have procedures. It's devastating to be in a police station. I've never been in one before. I was very frightened, and I stayed there from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. But I'm not saying that they weren't unkind, but they did their jobs. It was scary. I was scared. And I'm worried about my children. I want to go home.
The one thing that happens to all celebrities is that when they get to the superstar status, they tend to think that they are more important than they are and forget where they actually came from. And that's why you will find a celebrity, whether it's a show business star or a royal, who gets to a status and thinks that they are really important, and they forget, and then that's suddenly they want to be private. You know, after basing their life on seeking and cultivating publicity, suddenly they want to be private, and that's mainly their downfall. You know, they suddenly want to shut themselves away. Well, there's usually a reason why they want to shut themselves away, and it's usually because that they're up to some naughty business somewhere, and they don't want us to find out about it, but we always will.
In the public's mind, being a celebrity is not about being ordinary and suffering the regular indignities of daily life. It's about escapism.
The real world's the one we're living in. You know, the real world's the traffic jam, you know, rushing for the bus, the train, whether the wage packet is going to come through in a week or a month's time, or whether you're going to have a job. That's the real world. So it's nice to read about other kinds of culture, other backgrounds. It's exciting, and you really want to know about all these people. I mean, the fact that Mrs. Jones down the road's having an affair, who gives a monkeys? But if it's Robbie Williams or Kylie Minogue or Posh and Becks or a member of the royal family, well, it's, you know, it's what people want to talk about. And should they be with that person? I mean, look at all the Charles and Diana scenario. I mean, we had the country divided as to whether, you know, Charles was right to leave Diana, whether he should have stayed with Camilla. You know, people wanted to stone Camilla to death in the streets. You know, it's a great talking point.
Haunted by the endless images of his mother being hounded by the press, Prince William thanked the media for leaving him and his brother Harry alone to enjoy their school days.
They've been very good. I was a bit anxious about how everything was going to turn out, but thanks to everyone, it really has been brilliant. You've all left me alone at the beginning. The whole of Eton made a real big difference with everyone not trying to sort of snap a picture every time I was walking around the streets, and I hope it just continues for Harry as well when he's there.
He thanked the press for being quite understanding. He clearly must be haunted by the endless images of his mother, the repetition of gossip, the non-stop interest, some good, some bad, and to have an icon who will never age, like his mother, always there in the background, is not easy, particularly when it's your mother.
The new aristocrats enjoy the full privilege and wealth of their success. Prince William, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, is already a millionaire many times over, a small price to pay for his celebrity status. However, constant public scrutiny does carry benefits, particularly for his friends, who enjoy a royal patronage like nothing else on earth.
Being close to or a member of the royal family is almost like having some kind of magic dust all over you. You can be as famous as you like, but if you have a title or are in with the royals, then it's that little bit extra that really makes it special.
Tara Palmer-Tompkinson, on the right, has been showered with magic dust. Her family are very close to Prince Charles, close enough for her to be photographed on his arm during a skiing holiday. Using her royal connections, Tara elevated herself to become an it girl and succeeded in grabbing the headlines.
Tara Palmer-Tompkinson is the perfect example of somebody who has become famous just by being associated with the royal family. She comes from a wealthy family and had access to all the right places. She's good looking. A lot of men found her very attractive. A lot of women found her very interesting and wanted to know what she was up to, and all of a sudden she's everywhere.
But the press turned on Tara when a story emerged that she was using her royal connections to get publicity, with claims that she'd slept with Prince William.
I think a lot of people thought that it was a way of bringing attention to herself and reminding everybody how close she is to the royals, to say that she hadn't slept with him.
Tara's misdemeanors slipped her into alcohol dependency and drugs abuse, questioning the quality of certain young, rich people who associate with Prince William.
A lot of the young, moneyed trustafarians, they're called, find themselves getting into drugs because they've got lots of money, lots of time on their hands, and no reason to get up early in the morning. And eventually I think they get bored and get sucked into that whole lifestyle. Tara Palmer Tompkinson is a classic case of this. She went to so many parties and busy all day. It's hardly surprising at all that she got involved with drugs. However, it's possibly the worst thing she could have done because the royal family are terribly frightened of anybody close to William, especially being involved with drugs, and immediately wanted to get her as far away from him as they could.
Unlike his father, William has never experienced the emotional deprivation of a royal upbringing, so he has no reason to look on it as doing him any harm. But within the royal family, there is a history of addiction, and some younger members have experienced hard drugs.
Of course, drugs is an issue for the royals, for everyone. Some of his friends have been occasionally taking cocaine, not on a regular basis. They've been rather caught in a bit of gotcha journalism by some of the newspapers, and have all, on the whole, come forward and said, look, we took it, we're not going to take it again. There's always concern that Prince William will get caught up in a bad circle. I think he hasn't. He's been very sensible. His friends are incredibly loyal.
Prince William's mother was an undisputed royal fashion icon and supported the British fashion industry on many occasions. In his mother's absence, Prince William's cousin, Lord Frederick Windsor, one of the new young royals, has taken over and become an attractive royal fashion icon.
Freddie Windsor is definitely a sex icon. He is young and gorgeous and linked to the royal family.
The image is a certain amount of conservatism, and you have to have a certain amount of that sort of chic, handsome, good look. Then Freddie Windsor doubly qualifies. The fact that he is royal adds even more cachet to something that wants to be a cachet with class. If you've got a handsome person with the cachet of class, it helps his career too.
I think he's a terrific model. I mean, he looks young, sexy, and has a whole model essence about him. There's a charisma. He is very good looking. He plays well in front of the camera, and that has been, to his advantage. Nice to have a little bit of pocket money, and nice to show again a modern face of royalty.
Dressing up comes naturally to Lord Freddie. Even at his sister Lady Gabriella's christening in 1981, his mother Princess Michael of Kent made him look quite cute. Years later, Lord Freddie and his sister wore eye-catching clothes to a fancy dress party. On royal occasions, their mother cuts the elegant image of a grand princess. Nicknamed Princess Pushy by the press, she's very ambitious for her daughter, who has recently launched herself with a series of attractive photographs.
She has allowed some of her own love of razzmatazz to rub off on them. Gabriella Windsor, we've seen go to America, perhaps to escape the limelight. It's easier to be in America if you're a minor royal, where people probably don't even know who you are. And so that's quite refreshing for her. I think Princess Michael is an ambitious confident woman who likes to take opportunities. I think she will wish the best for her children on that way.
The young and beautiful Lady Helen Windsor, another new royal, was married at Windsor Castle in 1992. Wearing a dress designed by Catherine Walker, one of Princess Diana's favourite designers, she is a gracious member of the royal family. Soon after her wedding, she attended the marriage of Lord Linley and stood out with her style and elegance.
She's a beautiful girl who has very simple, clear taste, and she's aligned herself commercially to Armani. Prior to that, it was with Calvin Klein. These very discreet commercial associations, which means she then, wears their stuff. They're happy because it gets photographed. I mean, it's a nice little circle of everyone being happy.
Looking smart, Lady Helen Windsor attended the wedding of Lady Sarah Armstrong-Jones, another new royal and the daughter of Princess Margaret, who accompanied her mother and father to the wedding of her brother, Lord Linley. 40 years earlier, Princess Margaret had been a royal bride herself when she married Sarah's father, then the society photographer Anthony Armstrong-Jones. Now divorced, misfortune and ill health has dogged Princess Margaret in her solitary years.
Princess Margaret was the big star in this country, and people forget now how beautiful she was. She had a 19-inch waist, great big movie star mouth. She was a nightclubber.
I think Princess Margaret was a fashion icon and a total celebrity in her day. She looked incredible in the Norman Hartnell pictures that I have in a scrapbook somewhere.
She was photographed all over the place, at the 400, at the embassy, and she always had an element of darkness about her, which made her more of a celebrity. She was the younger sister. She was looking for a happy marriage. And then after the Townsend affair, she became a true celebrity because she had tragedy attached to her. And there were pictures of her in the papers every single day with all various lovers and boyfriends, and she was actually more beautiful than Diana.
A figure of glamour in the 50s and 60s with mystique and looking so elegant, and she was one of the most beautiful women in the world in her time. And I think there's a sort of residual affection for her, despite her slight grumpiness and tetchiness, and many stories about her not behaving perhaps as well as she should.
Princess Diana attended Lord Linley's wedding alone. Once a new royal herself, she was now divorced from Prince Charles and coming to terms with life on the outside.
I'm almost certain she would have ended up a lonely and sick person, which is very sad and perhaps a little unfair, but I think she wouldn't have found happiness with any man. Even if she'd married a local farmer, I think she would have been deeply unhappy, and I think she would have been very lonely. If she had been a different sort of person and could have just done her charity work and gone on her missions and sort of saved the world, which in a way she was trying to do, that would have been wonderful. But there was so much problem inside her and in her head. I don't think she had the capacity to be truly happy for any length of time.
Life on the outside for young royals like Princess Margaret's daughter Sarah, a talented artist, seems preferable to life on the inside.
Sarah Armstrong-Jones wants to be a celebrity. She's a very good artist and she's had a certain amount of celebrity for that, but I think she has seen what it's done to her mother, what it's done to her uncle, and certainly she wants to keep as low-key as she can, while still promoting herself as an artist. So they've all got an upside to it.
Lord Linley, Princess Margaret's son, is fortunate to be born royal. He graduated as a carpenter.
He is actually a master craftsman. He sells desks which go for £150,000. They are with Roman coins into the handles. I mean, the marquetry, the craftsmanship, they take sometimes a year and a half to make something. They hire an incredible amount of craftsmen. They give employment to a lot of people. They boost Britain by showing it as a place where the traditions of Chippendale can continue.
English traditions stretch beyond Chippendale furniture, and through royal patronage, the new royals are accused of using their enviable position for commercial gain.
I think one of the most intriguing things that we've seen over the last few years is the way that some of the younger royals have used their royal position to generate a commercial industry for themselves. Viscount Linley is a very talented carpenter, but it certainly helped him, the fact that he was Princess Margaret's son. So to an extent, I think they are doing something which was never ever done in the past, which is they're commercializing their royal background.
I think everybody uses their position to benefit themselves. What else have you got? I don't think they can be blamed for that. I don't think you can actually differentiate the two. If you've got royal blood and you want to promote yourself, that is going to be something that people are going to use, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way life is. I don't think they can be blamed for that.
The Queen's youngest son, Prince Edward, married Sophie Rhys-Jones to become the Countess of Wessex, the latest new royal. Why was she hailed as the new Princess Diana in the royal family?
Basically, they're all boring. It's as simple as that. There isn't anybody who is a tall blonde with blue eyes and got long legs and holds babies and cuddles AIDS victims and takes up causes for the disadvantaged. There isn't anyone like that. We had hopes that maybe Sophie Rhys-Jones, when she became the Countess of Wessex, might have stepped into that vacuum. But to be quite honest, you know, Sophie was never, is not a match for Diana.
The logical person to replace Diana as the fashion icon is Sophie Rhys-Jones, who I think is in a very difficult position because she'd only have to show a bit more extrovert personality and she'd be accused of being Princess Diana. And I think that the royal family will go out of their way now for something like that not to happen again.
And I don't believe that there will be anyone who could fill that role until we have the lady Prince William finds. I think that will be the new Diana.
His mother was brought up with the ideal of being a fairy princess, whereas he isn't brought up from back and beyond thinking he's a fairy prince. He can see the other side, and if anything, I think it will make him more wary of what he's going to do.
A public relations executive before she became the Countess of Wessex, Sophie worked to gain maximum exposure for her clients. As a member of the royal family, she still works in PR, raising questions about commercial advantage.
To a lot of companies, having someone like the Countess of Wessex gives kudos. It also opens the possibility, of course, that you may actually be able to get royals in on your product, which is, of course, rather helpful when it comes to pitching for a new client.
Getting royals involved in his product helps Prince Edward. As an independent television producer, he courts bad publicity and is criticised for using his royal connections to get work.
Prince Edward, who's supposed to be a TV producer, I mean, the only successful TV programmes he's made have got connections to do with the royal family. Well, any TV producer, any journalist who's got that sort of inside knowledge and help, if you've just got to ask your mum to open up the books and let's have a look at it, well, clearly you can't make a programme that's not going to be successful. But he's made other programmes. His famous Annie's Bar, based on the House of Commons, bombed.
It's very difficult to shed bad publicity, and bad publicity breeds bad publicity, and they need some good opportunities. And maybe the child, hopefully a child comes, will be a watershed where we will see Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, who's lovely, really nice, straightforward girl who is, I think, going to be rather a secret weapon of the royal family.
Princess Anne has kept her royal powder dry by maintaining her celebrity status through a mixture of common sense and pragmatism.
Princess Anne is a remarkable lady who has risen above her royal celebrity to become a pillar of what we would regard as the very best of the royal family. I think her achievements have been remarkable. We all used to hate her. 20 years ago, we used to think she was awful. She was rude, obstreperous, unattractive. Now, I think most people in this country would regard her with great respect. She's what the royal family should be. She's what the royal family might have been had it not been for Diana and Fergie.
Princess Anne's daughter was christened Zara Phillips. From the start, Anne wanted her children to be relieved of the burden of royal titles. Zara is the modern face of new royalty with an interesting future.
I don't think Anne's children want to become celebrities, but they're semi-celebrities already. They are gorgeous children. They're very level-headed, they're ordinary, they don't have titles. They are the way forward. I think that Zara will definitely become a celebrity.
Zara Phillips is seen as a wild one by the press. They long to make her into the wild child of the royal family, the one with the studied tongue, the one who goes abroad and has rather glamorous romances or links with rather glamorous looking boys.
We've had a few tickles at stories about, you know, with a relationship boyfriend, Richard Johnson, to a £400 a night hotel in Mauritius.
She's rather like her mother. She loves horses, she loves the outside world, she's pretty down to earth and straightforward.
I think there's only one real star in that family at the moment, and that is Prince William, which is extremely difficult for him to deal with. I think Zara Phillips might be creeping up on him, and I have a feeling that Zara might take on quite a lot of royal duties, and I think that they possibly see Zara as helping William, because he really doesn't enjoy the celebrity that he has, even at this stage. He's a very private person, and I think he's going to have problems with dealing with the media interest.
As new royals, palace officials viewed Diana and Fergie as a continuing danger to royal stability. Sarah Ferguson married Prince Andrew in 1986 and became the Duchess of York. But as new royal, she was accused of being a loose cannon and the woman who plunged the crown into crisis and bringing shame to the royal family. Following their divorce, Andrew behaved with great civility to his estranged wife, believing that the happiness of their young daughters Beatrice and Eugenie came first. Fergie's downfall was prompted by her love for rich, handsome Americans. First, there was the dashing Texan Steve Wyatt. Then his friend Johnny Bryan followed. Bryan claimed that he was an honest broker, helping Fergie with her marital and financial problems. The papers told a different story. The indiscretions of previous royal generations had been covered up. Fergie found, like Diana's, that hers were exposed.
She was a celebrity. Fergie made herself a celebrity because she did everything wrong, and she became the sort of celebrity who's always slipping on a banana skin, which people love. And they were beastly about Fergie. They criticised her madly, and the more criticised she was, the more of a celebrity she became. And now she's cashing in on those years by being a huge celebrity in America. And she turned her nose up at the establishment, and she said, well, I'm going to do this and that and the other, and that's too bad. If they don't like it, I'm going to get on with it. And people admired her, but they still criticised her, and I think they always will criticise her. She's not loved in this country. I mean, everybody said Fergie's stupid, but I don't think anyone can be that stupid that manages to make the amount of money she's made. I think she's become very, very canny. She always was quite canny about money.
Fergie used her royal connections to sell her literary endeavours, while men and money were the reasons for her fall from grace. Celebrity status for royalty goes with the job. While life in the Goldfish Bowl has its compensations, a vigilant press keeps a watchful eye through the glass.
With the royals, that everybody likes to see what the Queen and her family are up to. They hate people like us. The Queen Mother would rather have nothing ever come out about the royal family. You don't see or hear anything about it. They loathe the dirty washing in public. We love it, you know, and the readers love it, the viewers love it. They love to see it. It's a world that normal people, you know, who have normal day-to-day jobs, they don't live in that life. But it's nice to get a partial involvement in seeing it through the eyes of the papers or the television.
Media interest in the marriage of Diana and Charles lifted the veil of royal mystique, seriously damaging the institution of monarchy.
I think that, like it or not, the royals are surrounded by publicity, and I think that someone like the Queen, who was luckily brought into the limelight at an early age, and I really admired her throughout the whole of that Princess Diana thing, because I'm sure she was probably in tears behind the scenes, but at every ounce a Queen, she didn't comment, she stayed behind the doors. People might be criticising her, they might be saying the Queen says this, the Queen says that. No one knew what she really said. But the fact that she didn't say anything made her even more of a queen.
Spice Girls, in the top 10 of the celebrity pay charts, each earn more than £6 million every year. At their movie premiere, looking like 5 checkout girls on a riotous hen night, they welcomed the news media and grabbed the opportunity to expose themselves.
Done it. Finally. 3 years ago we planned this movie. Really excited all about absolutely fantastic. What's the film got? A bit of excitement.
A bit of fun. It's like when you go to cinema, you want a bit of escapism. This is entertainment.
And for all you adults, it's got a great sense of humour. We really take the mickey out of ourselves and you, the media.
Anyone that's on television becomes a star because television is the new age. And I think it's, I mean, you have soap stars on television. I think it's hugely influential, much more so than newspapers.
Pop culture dominates the celebrity world, and during her life, Diana enjoyed its attention. Charity events were an opportunity to dress up and meet the stars, even if her husband did look a bit stuffy. Diana brought a new image to royalty. As an attractive princess, her pulling power was unique. Event organisers scrambled to invite her.
Whenever there was an event organised, a charity event, you had the coming of Diana to that event, and you name the showbiz celeb, and they were there. I mean, it was a great A-list. You know, she turned up at a premiere. Practically every celeb who was worth his salt would be there, and so it's all show business then. It's all razzmatazz, because you've got the two great forces, haven't you? You've got the sexy side of royalty coming out and the sexy side of show business coming out, and those two together, well, it's no company, you can't beat them.
Diana's celebrity status reached an impressive climax in 1985 during a visit to Florence. Since her marriage into the royal family, Diana had matured from a shy teenager into a new royal who became the centre of an obsessive fascination. Charles was there, but it was his wife that people had really come to see. Her instant success as a new royal clearly upset some members of his family.
I don't think they really understood what they had brought into the royal family. I think they saw this very timid, shy girl, sit in the corner, eat your peas, shut up, don't do anything. We'll tell you when to walk, when to talk, when to do this. Well, that was all right, but suddenly, as she kept coming out onto the streets, each time she kept coming out, more and more people were there. Until, all you had to do was start a rumour that Diana was going to be around, and thousands clogged out into the street. She would walk into a room, she would twang the braces of the Portuguese president, and that he was totally in love with her, never mind his wife. She would sort of gently squeeze the hand of another president in some other country, and that was it. He was also a devoted fan, and all of it rubbed off well on Britain. It was like we got gold medals all the time with Diana.
During a visit to America in 1985, Princess Diana caught the imagination of the American people. The fairy tale princess had come to town. Welcomed to a grand banquet by President Reagan at the White House, this was a meeting of the stars.
John, are you going to dance with the princess tonight?
She'd like me to.
Well, the royals have always been our Hollywood, because in the old days we didn't have those wonderful square-faced, good-looking actors that they did in America. And people like to look up to Hollywood because it was a fantasy, it wasn't real life, and they could lose themselves in it. So in a way, the worse their own situation was, the more that they liked to lose them in the fantasy of somebody else's life.
The stairway to Diana's fantasy life began as a 20-year-old Lady Di. An early meeting with Princess Grace of Monaco brought the new royals together, briefly in life and in death. Tragically, they both died in car accidents.
Princess Grace was definitely an icon because she was the ideal marriage of Hollywood and royalty. And again, she had a darker side to her. She had a drinking problem, she had affairs, her marriage wasn't the fairy tale it was made out to be, and she was stunningly beautiful, probably the most beautiful of all the royal princesses. And the meeting of her and Prince Rainier was like a movie. So she was really the greatest royal princess in terms of media interest.
The film star side of royalty was often on display. During an early royal tour of Indonesia, Diana was an accomplished performer. The weather was hot and humid, which did not deter the royal couple. Appearances had to be maintained. With hindsight, we know that Diana was bulimic and not a happy person. Yet she did so much to project royalty in a good light. A recent book claims that she was forced to become a royal rebel due to a chronic feeling of rejection by her husband's family.
I think Diana single-handedly changed the way that the British public perceives the royal family, and not to the advantage of the royal family. I think that she's brought the question of the royal family's future very much, it's now in the balance. And I think that's a direct consequence of the way that she redefined, broke the mold of the traditional image of the royal family. The long-term effects, I think, they're still being worked out.
The royal family didn't know what they had with Diana, and they were as guilty as Charles at that time of not being able to harness and use it for their own good, to help promote the royal family and show them it all in a good light. They wanted to stay in their old style and stuffiness and not tell anybody anything, but she just swept all that away.
That old style and stuffiness burst in 1996 with the divorce of Charles and Diana. Enter now a new royal, Mrs. Camilla Parker Bowles. On a rare public outing, Camilla turned up dripping with diamonds and clad in a crystal-encrusted Versace dress, which Charles had paid for.
It'll be a long time before we see Charles, Camilla together or separately on the cover of Vogue magazine, because the one thing that neither of them have is glamour.
Prince Charles keeps his relationship with Camilla away from the public eye. But cynics claim that the out-of-bounds press arrangements used to protect his son are shielding his mistress too.
Because you've got this exclusion zone around William, it therefore means it's more difficult to sort of try and look at stories of Charles and Camilla, because it's behind the scenes, and so you've got to penetrate the William exclusion zone first before you can get to the other part. So I think the royal family is using that to sort of bring down the shutters on a great deal of other things.
There are lots of conspiracy thoughts going on about, is Camilla being pushed forward in a certain way? And yes, she is the answer. I mean, there is obviously a concerted effort to try to make Prince Charles's girlfriend seem as acceptable to the public as possible. It makes life easier for him, it makes life easier for her, and I suspect they will slowly win the war, and there will be more and more acceptance as we just take for granted that she's there.
Diana felt that the prospect of William becoming king weighed heavily on the young man. Others say that he doesn't dwell on his destiny. He does, however, protect his mother's memory. When the press cried betrayal, it was reporting a book written by Diana's private secretary, portraying her as a scheming, paranoid liar. These revelations coincided with his press meeting at Highgrove. In his first ever public response to a newspaper report, William, speaking calmly and clearly holding his feelings in check, was asked for his reaction to these allegations.
Well, of course, Harry and I are both quite upset about it, that our mother's trust has been betrayed, and that even now she's still being exploited. But I don't really want to say any more on that.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks very much.
The pressure on Prince William to succeed as a new royal will weigh heavily on him as he continues with his studies at St Andrews University after a year travelling the world. A royal icon in the making, William stands out well against other cultural icons of his generation. In his natural environment astride a horse, images of a young prince demonstrating his polo skills during a school's tournament are worthy of any Hollywood movie. This is a new royal in the making.
He's got everything, so when you get the chance of seeing him in a situation which we are allowed to go to, then, you know, it's good. It will always make the papers. As he carries on, he's not yet on the royal treadmill, but eventually he will be carrying out official duties. The day will come when he'll find, you know, a young lady of his own who'll be the one who'll be total focus of attention. And if I had any advice for William, and it would be, if that happens and she turns out to be a stunner, you know, and a nice girl and everything else, and she starts taking over the publicity, well, don't make the mistake that your dad did. You know, just hang on in there, because people will still love you as well.
Prince William.
It's William's birthright to hang on in there. The new royal of all royals will be a demanding job for a young man as he comes of age. Constantly under the spotlight and never far from intense public scrutiny, he will need all the help he can get from his family and friends.
To be King of England is one of the most strenuous jobs, in that you're always going to be under the public attention and there is no way out of it. A movie star chooses to be a movie star and can always say, I retire. If you are the Prince of Wales's son, going to be king, you are going to be always under that spotlight. You're in a glass bowl, you have a drink of Coca-Cola, everyone says, do we drink Coca-Cola? You wear shades, as he did at the Cartier Polo, everyone said, do we wear these dark glasses? He has a girlfriend who comes from the north, should we all move north? He has a girlfriend from the west, do we all go west? Wow, what a pressure for a young teenager.
Unlike the culture of other new royals, Prince William must fulfill his destiny and one day become a king.
Prince Henry Charles Albert David, third in line to the British throne, is famous for some things he'd rather forget. Unlike his brother William, Harry has seen his life played out in a series of sensational headlines. There was that distinctly unregal fracas with a photographer outside a London nightclub. And a few weeks later, Harry caused global outrage by wearing a Nazi uniform at a party. But on the field, on the piste and on a horse, Harry outperforms his older brother William.
He was a great sportsman, fearless skier, very brave on a polo pony, and again on a horse chasing after foxes and hounds. He is actually better than William in most sports.
But unlike the cool-headed William, beneath his mischievous appearance, Harry has a temper as hot as his red hair. This trait is sometimes seen on the polo field, where frustration is soon followed by anger. Harry's occasional displays of tantrums and swearing at the Beaufort Polo Club have embarrassed his father, Prince Charles. He also has a quick temper, but Harry's wilder streak is inherited from his mother's Spencer family genes.
There are some definite Spencer traits in him. You've only got to look at that sandy hair of his, where it inherits straight from his uncle, Charles Spencer. And he's got the same Spencer fiery temper. He's on a short fuse most of the time, and if he's provoked by the sight of photographers or the paparazzi hanging around, he can fly off the handle. As long as he's getting his own way, Harry's quite happy. It's when he's compromised, when he's told to do things that he doesn't particularly want to do, that's when the temper comes to the fore.
Charles scarcely knows what to do about his younger son's behaviour. There have been rumours of heated rows and angry telephone calls. There have been arguments over Harry's friends and their influence. Even his polo pals have come under fire. But Harry remains loyal to his friends in one of the few areas of his life where he feels successful.
Well played, Harry. And then out to, also had a brilliant game, Mr. Harry Wales.
He's rarely praised for anything else, so he treasures prizes won on the polo field. Harry remains a difficult character whose unruly conduct often damages his reputation.
I think Harry gets pushed to the limit, and events, and maybe of his own making admittedly, happen to him that push him to the limit. He's constantly followed, he's constantly photographed when he's meant to be enjoying his own time and he's meant to be relaxing. And there are obviously parts of his character that we don't always see.
He wants to be noticed. I think he enjoys being noticed, but I think he also loves the fact that it doesn't matter what he does because, in a way, he's not important. Although, serious people will tell you, but he's only 3 heartbeats away from the throne. Well, he is, but no one expects him seriously to actually reach it.
Another area where Harry finds similar company is among the hunting set. Like William, he rides with the prestigious Beaufort hunt. Charles and Camilla are also members of this hunt. Among the other riders is their friend Captain Simon Tomlinson, a wealthy Gloucestershire landowner. Tomlinson, in the red trousers, is also the chairman of the Beaufort Polo Club, where Charles, William and Harry play. Tomlinson's sons are in Harry's social set.
He's mixing with young people from a similar background. They hunt, they're moneyed, their parents are friends of the royals themselves. There's a lot of privilege. They all went to decent public schools. He hangs around very much with that kind of group of people. So we've got people who are members of the Beaufort Hunt. They played polo in Cirencester Park in the summer. They ski. They're all well-to-do young folk. And he's more comfortable in them. I don't know how many friends he's got from the other side of the tracks, but I will wager very, very few.
Secure in the gilded circle of accepted companions is Luke Tomlinson, an England polo player.
The Tomlinson children are part of what's known as the Glossy Posse, that group of, rich, eligible young chaps and chapesses down in Gloucestershire. They're childhood friends who've grown up together, but with Luke especially, Harry has continued a good, close friendship.
Luke was part of a protest outside the Houses of Parliament against anti-hunt laws. Then the House of Commons was invaded by pro-hunt supporters, including Luke Tomlinson.
Sitting suspended. Sitting suspended.
There's a bit of envy, a touch of the green-eyed monster for Harry when it comes to Luke, because not only is he a strapping lad, which obviously Harry is as well, but he gets away with so much more than Harry ever would. He gets to storm the Commons when it's an anti-hunting ban that Harry would probably passionately want to support, but could never do. Luke gets to do those things. Luke gets to go and get the girls and, muck around after polo and everything else and not end up in the papers as prominently, of course, as Harry will.
Not far from Highgrove, Prince Charles's Gloucestershire home, are hostelries such as the Vine Tree and, in nearby Shurston, the Rattlebone Inn, scene of some of Harry's wilder exploits. In February 2002, 16-year-old Harry was exposed by a tabloid newspaper for smoking cannabis and underage drinking in pubs close to Highgrove. Harry's illegal escapades were confirmed by Charles's biographer, Penny Juna.
I live locally and I have children of the same sort of age as Harry, and it has been known I've known for quite a long time that he has been drinking underage in pubs and drinking a lot and behaving pretty badly.
Harry was reticent about answering press questions during a skiing holiday with his father and brother.
Harry, how have you settled down after all that publicity about your exploits?
Fine.
Charles had warned both William and Harry about the consequences of drug taking and the inevitable publicity.
remember Prince Charles telling me, actually, several years ago, we were sitting having tea at Highgrove, that he was really worried about drugs. He said, what can you do? Because the minute William and Harry get anywhere near drugs, it's going to be all over the press, which is exactly what happened.
Some of Harry's reckless in-crowd have led him astray.
He has a rent-a-mob group of friends who drink with him and smoke with him and hang out with him. He surrounds himself with quite vacuous people. It's all part of Harry's hedonistic lifestyle.
Part of Harry's problem is the gang who's around him. If the royal advisors can do anything, they would be well advised to split him away from these malign influences.
Among the best known is Harry's raffish second cousin, Freddie Windsor, who enjoys publicity and courts the media. And Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles. Like Freddie, he was caught out taking drugs. And the prince's joker pal, Guy Pelly, blamed for Harry's bad habits.
Everything that Guy Pelly has been in the papers for would suggest very strongly that he is a bad, bad influence on the princes. He is the first one to strip, the first one to moon, the first one to neck a yard of ale. He will do all those things, and because of that, William and Harry and everyone else that know him adore him. But I actually know through friends of William and Harry's that Guy Pelly is probably one of the most loyal friends to both of them. Guy shouldered the blame for Harry when he was caught out over the whole cannabis smoking fiasco. He was the one that took responsibility for that and said that it was him who had introduced the prince and therefore it is my fault. And it's interesting that Charles has never said to either William or Harry, he's to be outcast from your circle of friends. And Charles has done that in the past. He's done it with Tom Parker Bowles, he's done it with Freddie Windsor. He has done it, but he's never done it with Guy Pelly.
The trouble with Harry is he's probably influenced by the last person who said anything to him. And so he tends to be influenced by his peers. And if his peers lead him into trouble, then he's going to get into trouble.
As Harry's conduct worsened, Charles and his staff were faced with an escalating damage control problem. More bad behaviour meant more bad publicity and more criticism. In a fit of temper, Harry hit a photographer outside a London nightclub. He was sent away to Argentina. He was to spend several weeks working on the polo ranch of the Tomlinson family. Out there, he secretly met up with his latest girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. But once again, trouble found Harry. He had to come home amid stories of partying in local clubs and kidnap threats to his safety.
Harry was under scrutiny for drinking, binge drinking, going out late at night. I mean, those reports were strongly denied by the palace, and actually I think the truth of what happened in Argentina was that he kept himself to himself and Chelsea Davy, who of course was the secret flame that he'd been nurturing for the past 8 months and had secretly got over in Argentina without anyone foiling it.
One of the country's most elite nightclubs has the unusual setting of Highgrove, Prince Charles's country home. Members of William and Harry's young circle of friends gather here, especially when Charles is away. This is the location of Club H.
The Club H is actually a physical place. It was the cellars underneath Highgrove that Charles had converted into a playroom for the boys a few years ago, which as they got older, they decided to turn more into a nightclub. So they had a music system put in, there's a bar down there, and it became a regular fixture for them on a Saturday night. They would bring their friends around there, they would party there, and all sorts of nefarious things went on there. The Prince of Wales did turn a blind eye to it, except when the music was too loud, and that's about the only time he really took much interest in what was going on. And when he wasn't there, I think the boys were able to do pretty much what they like, inviting who they liked round there.
Church Farm, West Littleton in Wiltshire, is the country home of Princess Anne's former boyfriend, Richard Meade. An Olympic gold medalist, Meade has stayed in favour as part of the Royal Hunting, Shooting and Fishing Circle. William and Harry were invited to Meade's son Harry's 22nd birthday party. The princes chose their colonials and natives themed costumes from a local fancy dress shop. William picked a leopard skin outfit, Harry an Afrika Korps Nazi uniform complete with a swastika. One of the 400 party guests took a sneak picture of Harry and sold it to the press. Harry was widely condemned for his insensitivity. William became embroiled in the row.
William was in the shop with him at the time, apparently, when he chose this costume, and it also didn't occur to William to say, Harry, that's perhaps not in the best taste. Why don't you go for a different colonial outfit?
Why would William, who is a mature young man, have allowed Harry to dress in that German officer's uniform? It was a naive thing to do, and William could have said, oh, hang on a bit, think about this. He simply didn't think. I think there is a thoughtlessness about many of his actions. He doesn't seem to appreciate yet that what he does actually matters. If it had been one of his friends who dressed up in a German uniform, it wouldn't have mattered at all. But it's because it's Prince Harry, it's because he's the third in line to the throne, he has to be responsible, and at the moment he isn't.
Harry's friends came under press criticism for their wealthy backgrounds, lack of purpose, and loutish conduct. A guest at the mead party revealed that Guy Pelly, dressed as the Queen in a blue dress, grey wig and crown, told a risque joke about her.
When Harry was at this party and larking around and just about to laugh at Guy Pelly's alleged joke about the Queen, it was William that shot him the very fiery glance to say, watch it.
Harry's Nazi gaffe, made near the 60th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, prompted calls for a televised apology, but Charles felt that a two-line statement issued by his office was enough.
Harry would have been well advised to have made a much more public, heartfelt apology for his gaffe in wearing a Nazi uniform. It wasn't a press-driven story. There was genuine outrage around the world at what he did. It was a big mistake, and I think he could have come out and said something publicly, or perhaps Prince Charles could have done.
Charles remained on holiday at Birkhall in Scotland, planning his marriage to Camilla. Had Harry's lack of support from Charles been part of his problems?
I think he could have had a lot more guidance, especially from his father. Harry's on a gap year at the moment, and a very unstructured gap year. You would expect that there would be a father figure there to help him plan the next few months of this year off. And he seems to have spent so much of it on his own, and I think that's got to be a major cause for him going off the rails, because he hasn't had the guidance there.
Harry had to atone for his offence. He was ordered to spend time swilling out the pigs on one of his father's farms. As a child, Harry showed two sides. The shepherd with the angelic face was also a little rascal who poked out his tongue. Holiday photo calls tested his patience. He had to behave at kindergarten, but palace balcony appearances were an excuse for showing off. Harry showed an early interest in sport and enjoyed annual family skiing holidays. He was taken to polo matches. He learned to swim in warm Spanish waters. He got an early taste of army life inside a tank in Germany. There were holidays in exotic locations. William and Harry went to Nevis Island in the Caribbean. They were fascinated by the local wildlife, 9-inch long toads.
There must have been 20 or 30 of these giant toads sitting in this flower bed. So systematically, Harry had collected these toads and put them in a sort of basket, and they're all trying to jump out of this box. And then with William, they eventually lined up these toads by the swimming pool. And we had what was then famously known as the Nevis Toad Derby.
Official tours meant partings from their parents and joyful reunions, often aboard the Royal Yacht Britannia. Once, when Diana had greeted William first, Harry kicked him in resentment. The boys got on well together, but there was an undercurrent of sibling rivalry.
When Harry was younger, he was jealous of William because he wanted his mother all to himself. I mean, if they were in a room together, Harry would sit almost on top of Diana in his anxiety to be close to her. And he didn't want William anywhere near her. He said, "Mummy, I want you all to myself."
Harry was a typical mummy's boy, clingy and in need of reassurance. Posed pictures on summer holidays in Mallorca hid a dark secret. Despite appearances, his parents' marriage was disintegrating. Diana would soon take her sons on trips away from Charles. With a welcoming hug, she would be the parent to greet them at school. Caribbean holidays gave Diana the chance to make Harry feel special. These boyhood moments must be among his most treasured memories of her. He was still a child when she died.
He was a terribly affectionate little boy, always wrapped around his mother, sneaking into her bed early in the morning for a cuddle, and I think that's what he desperately, desperately needs, and I hope now that he's found it.
She worried because he was the number two, that he would be the one who would be overlooked. Everything would come to William. William was the one they were grooming for the future. And it was that one of the reasons why Diana used to say to me and others that she wanted to involve Harry in William's life, and it carries on to this day. William rarely does photo calls on his own. Harry is always drawn into those because she didn't want him to be constantly overlooked. Oh, he's the spare, he doesn't count. She wanted him to count, and Prince Charles has taken that on board.
That policy of making Harry feel important sometimes upset William. He began to see Harry as a rival, especially on skis.
There was a lot of jealousy. I think at one stage William stomped off in a tantrum because he wasn't feeling well, he had flu, and there was Harry doing really well on his skis, and William kept falling over, so he just stomped off.
Harry had a natural affinity with sport.
The sporting star of the family is definitely Harry, and it always has been, and that used to really irritate William because he would see his younger brother better on the skis than he was, and Harry was fearless. You see, Harry is fearless.
Althorpe House, Northamptonshire, the seat of the Spencer dynasty. Diana is buried on an island in the estate. At her funeral, her brother, the current Earl, vowed that the Spencers, the blood family, would take care of William and Harry. Their maternal line is more aristocratic than the royal family's Germanic House of Windsor. When Diana was 14, her father inherited the title Earl Spencer and Althorpe with its rich heritage. Ancestral portraits grace the rooms of Diana's home before her royal marriage. At 16, and still a schoolgirl, she showed Prince Charles the family portrait gallery. Like her grandmother Cynthia, she was very much a Spencer and proud of her family's status. Throughout her troubled life in the royal family, she never forgot that she was the daughter of an English earl with a flawless pedigree.
I think there's no doubt that in the royal game, if you've got an impeccable bloodline of your own, it puts you at an advantage. Because the way the English system still very much works, where royalty is concerned, is that your status at birth is still what counts to an extraordinary degree. And the fact that Diana was able to look the Windsors in the eye and be prepared to compare her pedigree with theirs any day meant that she was able to take an independent line when it was necessary.
Her mother Frances, her red-haired brother Charles, then an Eton schoolboy, and her married sisters Sarah and Jane all watched Diana's splendid wedding to Prince Charles in 1981. This was the dynasty's greatest triumph. 20-year-old Diana united the Spencers with the royal family. Her father had survived serious illness to enjoy his proudest day. 2 years after William, Diana gave birth to Harry in 1984. The couple now had an heir and a spare. Charles, who had wanted a girl, said, "Oh, it's a boy, and he's even got rusty hair."
A friend of mine had gone to see Harry, and there he was with his red hair, which Prince Charles apparently didn't like. And she was cuddling him and saying, "He's my little Spencer now." And he does have the looks of the Spencers.
Eversfield Manor in Devon was the home of Diana's most famous lover, Major James Hewitt. She admitted their affair on television. A legend has spread that Harry is red-haired Hewitt's son. Ken Wharf, her bodyguard during her 5-year romance with Hewitt, is among those who know the truth.
what we saw after the birth of Harry was a lot of speculation and rumour that Harry was the son of James Hewitt. Well, statistically, we know that was impossible. I know personally it wasn't, because the princess told me so, and I think really that's where the matter ends.
The story will never ever go away. The copper-haired Hewitt, sandy-haired Harry, the dates and everything, everyone thinks he's got to be Hewitt's son. Also, there are some physical characteristics which I would commend to you, but particularly one. Harry, his brother, his father and his grandfather, Prince Philip, share one thing in common. They all have sausage fingers.
In 2004, at the opening of the Diana Memorial Fountain in London's Hyde Park, the Spencers and the Windsors met for the first time since Diana's funeral. Earl Spencer greeted William and Harry. Despite his vow at Diana's funeral, he'd been unable to protect Harry from gossip and innuendo.
He is terribly hurt by all these revelations that keep coming out about his mother, the endless books, the videotapes, all the allegations that keep coming out. The latest one is that Prince Charles lost all interest romantically in his wife after Harry was born. How do you think that makes Harry feel? Apart from that, Harry has had to live with these stories that he's James Hewitt's son, which he most certainly is not. He just happens to have red hair, just like all his cousins on the Spencer side of the family. So poor Harry is a tormented young man.
The Queen praised Diana.
I cannot forget, and nor can those of us here today who knew her much more personally, as sister, wife, mother, or daughter-in-law, the Diana who made such an impact on our lives. Of course, there were difficult times, but memories mellow with the passing of the years. I remember especially the happiness she gave to my two grandsons.
William was 15 and Harry almost 13 when they walked behind their mother's coffin in view of the watching world.
To find that your mother's died suddenly in a car crash in Paris would be difficult for anybody. The very fact that Harry at that time was in his early teens would have been doubly difficult, and to do so publicly in front of a global media circus. But I think this was a classic case of Harry grieving the loss of somebody that was crucially important to his life.
More than anyone else, Tiggy Legg Burke, the prince's nanny, helped them through the darkest phase of their loss and grief.
Tiggy was pivotal because she looked after the boys. As soon as they came down from Scotland and the funeral was over, they went to Highgrove, and that week, which must have been one of the most difficult weeks of their lives, Tiggy was there, and she took them out, anything to distract them, because they loved Tiggy very much and still do. And in fact, Tiggy's the only person that Harry will really listen to.
Tiggy had been brought in to look after the boys when their parents separated, and Charles was frequently away. She took Harry abseiling in Wales. Diana resented her role.
Diana used to get really annoyed with Tiggy because she felt Tiggy wasn't looking after the boys properly, and she let Harry abseil down a rock in Wales without a protective helmet, and she was furious. But basically, she loathed Tiggy, which is actually completely understandable because she saw that Tiggy was usurping her position as a mother.
Just a few months after their mother's death, Charles took the boys to Canada. The visit was a new experience for them. William, emerging as the royal family's pin-up prince, looked far more mature than young Harry. William received a pop star's reception and was beginning to enjoy his popularity. Harry had already made a trip, just with Charles, to Swaziland. Clearly a child who still needed his father, he relished the change of continent, climate and customs, although Charles was not too sure about the local brew. All this took Harry's mind off his terrible loss.
Harry loved it. Suddenly he was the centre of attention. There was no William there to make him feel second best. He was the centre of attention, and he lived up to it really well, and it was a big treat for him. It was organised to take Harry's mind off what had happened and give him something to look forward to.
The Spice Girls were there too.
When they were younger, Harry and William loved the Spice Girls. And William even had a poster of them in his room at Eton. And again, to kind of cheer them up, Charles invited the Spice Girls to Highgrove, and they went in a helicopter. And when they got there, they were very bouncy, and they ran up to William and Harry's bedroom and bounced on the beds with them.
This was Harry's treat. Sport provided a focus for Harry. Skiing appealed to his daredevil nature. Not quite as academic as William, Harry also loved football, rugby, cricket, swimming, athletics, and, of course, polo. He tried tobogganing in the Swiss Alps and quad biking on the Colorado ranch of film star Goldie Hawn. Harry grew into a tall, athletic young man, but he was not a natural student. He had visited Eton when William started in 1995. Harry followed 3 years later. Both boys relied heavily on their housemaster, Dr. Andrew Gailey.
Diana had many reservations about Harry going to Eton, not least because William had quite a difficult few years there. He found it difficult to make friends and he felt very isolated. Diana, being the protective maternal figure that she was, obviously had concerns that Harry would also go through that feeling of isolation, but also she was very aware that she didn't have an academic son.
Founded in 1440, Eton is England's leading independent school. It has a uniform dating from 1820 and many ancient traditions. As at their prep school, Harry followed in William's footsteps. At Eton, they were treated the same as other boys. Harry battled academically and had to drop one advanced level subject. But he enjoyed drama and art particularly. William made a success of Eton, but was the decision to send Harry there the right one?
Harry had a tough time at school. He was sent really to the wrong school. Eton is an intellectual hothouse. Harry is not an intellectual. He was kept back a year before he actually went up to Eton to try and speed up his education at prep school. I recall hearing soon after he arrived, he'd made friends with a young guy who'd also just arrived, who had not had a successful test in some particular test they were doing. This boy said to Harry one day, "You don't know what it's like to be bottom of the class," to which Harry said with great alacrity, "Well, you don't know what it's like to be bottom of the school." And I think that tells you everything you need to know about how he struggled at Eton.
Like Charles, Harry enjoyed school plays. Dressing up appealed to the creative side in him, but he didn't learn the difference between costumes like these, which were acceptable, and the Nazi outfit, which was not. That incident raised questions about his schooling. Was this a bad day for Eton?
Eton has a fantastic reputation. They turn out some very intelligent young men who go on to great things, and there's no doubt it's an extremely good school. I think there's only so much a school can teach. If you're not awake and listening during class, well, there's not much they can do about it.
Harry excelled on the playing fields of Eton. He was captain of games and was good at soccer, rugby, Eton Fives, and the annual Eton Wall game. At advanced level, he gained a D grade for geography and a B grade for art. This was his favourite subject. He allowed the cameras to record his advanced level project work. He showed his brightly decorated study bedroom. He left school joyfully in June 2003. However, a year later, a former art teacher claimed she had been instructed by the school to give him unfair assistance with his art coursework.
It was Diana that always said that Harry's fine, he's artistic, he's a fantastic sportsman. William is more sensitive. William considers things before he does them. I mean, Harry will do something on the spur of the moment and think about the consequences later.
A classic example of Harry's impulsive nature occurred when he was teased outside a nightclub. A photographer mocked him about his alleged art cheating. Harry reacted by lashing out and had to be restrained by his minders. Should Harry have been prepared for such goading?
He was full of booze. He was angry that they were there. I mean, utterly naive, because he knew that there were going to be photographers outside that club, and he just came out. He couldn't control himself, and 20 years of being aware of these bloody photographers, he went out like a rocket.
And I remember saying at the time that this was the actions of a young man that had come to the end of his patience. He's witnessed this with his mother. You had his own uncle say in that marvellous eulogy that the press, in his view, were in some ways responsible for her death. Now, all this history that builds up inside his head must surely play a part and in some way explain why he reacted in that way. The only way out of this is to sort of leave the club. Whatever your feelings, whatever your views, is actually to give that amazing smile and that wave, because that's the one thing the media don't want. What Harry did was give them that amazing opportunity for the different picture. So therefore, he effectively played right into their hands.
Harry played polo for Eton and at one stage considered a career as a professional polo player. It was an indication of his difficulty in finding a role suitable for himself as a royal second son. Other princes in the past have been in similar positions. Of particular interest to Harry is his uncle Andrew, Duke of York. In far-off days before the Queen had to worry about her family's marriages and divorces, and Charles seemed the perfect heir, her second son Andrew looked like the problem child.
I do recall Andrew being a bit of a problem. Around the time he was about 16, he famously went off to Los Angeles. I think it was his first taste of foreign work on behalf of the royals, and he decided to let off a fire extinguisher at a group of press photographers and covered them in foam head to foot. I mean, it's a very embarrassing incident, and it did a lot of damage, incidentally, to the equipment. But that was an early marker, one, on his behaviour, but it sent out a message to the Queen. She realised that her second son was going to have to be reined in, and he was reined in. What they did with Andrew? Quite simple. They put him in the Navy.
Andrew left Gordonston School in Scotland for naval training. He became a helicopter pilot. He married and divorced Sarah Ferguson, but the couple remained friends for the sake of their daughters Beatrice and Eugenie. Have their cousins William and Harry been damaged by their parents' bitter split?
I think the Queen does worry about her grandsons. She's extremely close to them. She worries less about William because she sees more of him, and she's happy about the way he's developing as an heir in line to the throne. I think Harry's a different kettle of fish. I think she probably sees in him more of Prince Andrew, and I think she would like Prince Charles to take a tighter control of Harry's life.
The Queen's grandfather, George V, was a second son who succeeded to the throne after the early death of his elder brother. He changed the family's German name Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to the English-sounding House of Windsor. He and Queen Mary were stern parents. Their elder son David was rebellious. His affair with Wallis Simpson led to his abdication. As Edward VIII, he gave up the throne for the woman he loved. As Duke and Duchess of Windsor, they lived in exile. The throne passed to the second son of George V, the shy Bertie. He became King George VI, father of the Queen. Some wonder if Charles should step aside for William, and there are others who wonder if William might one day step aside for Harry.
I think if British history teaches us anything, it is that where succession to the throne is concerned, people are remarkably pragmatic, so to that extent, anything is possible, theoretically.
Diane used to say Harry would love it, and used to say, "Don't worry, William, I'll be king." History does repeat itself, but for it to repeat itself and for William to abdicate, if you like, and Harry to become king, I think is very unlikely. It's a different world now, and I think that by the time William becomes king, he will be so much more of a figurehead. All the signals are that Harry will have an easier life than William because he has the privileges, but he doesn't have the responsibility that William has.
Carnarvon Castle, July 1969. The investiture of the 21st Prince of Wales. In this elaborate ceremony, Charles swore lifelong loyalty to the Queen. He was a 20-year-old Cambridge undergraduate. He also had to spend a term at Aberystwyth University learning Welsh.
Mae'ch ynerchiad wedi fy nghyffordd yn ddwys, a gallaf eich sicrhau.
This was the beginning of his public life. William and Harry have not been expected to perform public duties. Is it fair to make comparisons with their father?
The Prince of Wales was in fact the heir to the throne, and William in particular, and Harry of course, are not. They're the spares. Prince Charles is still the heir to the throne, so they were allowed this extra time to have on their own. This very much also was Diana's wish. She wanted them to have time to develop, to grow as teenagers.
The death of their mother in 1997 was devastating for both boys. But was one affected more than the other?
One must remember, Harry was not yet 13 when Diana died. He was extremely upset, affected by his mother's death. He misses her still to this day terribly. And I think it had a more profound effect on Harry than it did on William. William is much more a self-contained young man. So the net effect was that Charles and his advisors decided that they were to have as normal and as quiet an upbringing as possible. So instead of thrusting them into the line of royal duty at an early age, they've been allowed to have a life very much like those of their friends. Privileged, yes, but without much responsibility either.
Harry's initiation into the army came as a soldier in the school's cadet corps. He was promoted to the highest rank of cadet officer. He was to join the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst in January 2005, but his entry was postponed because of a knee injury. Both William and Harry attended a parade of the Parachute Regiment, of which their father is Colonel-in-Chief.
Harry's always been interested in the military. That's what Diana is explaining to me. Harry will be fine because he's always loved the military. He loves castles and pomp and soldiers, and when he was a little kid, he had a complete camouflage outfit made for him and wouldn't take it off. And James Hewitt also gave him a little military outfit, and Diana took him with her when she went to visit one of her regiments, and he sat in a tank and pretended to fire guns, and he's always loved it. So he's been single-minded really about what he wants to do.
I think if he can focus all the aggression that he feels at the moment into a military career, and the fact that he obviously feels very hard done by, and there is a lot of aggression and frustration, if he can channel that into his military career, he's going to be a fantastic soldier.
Harry's gap year began with a spell in Australia as a jackaroo in the summer of 2003. He worked for 3 months as a cattle hand, part of a program designed to widen his work experience. It has not been a success.
It's been a monumental disaster. A gap year is a year. A gap year, it says it's all there in the title. Harry's having a gap 2 years. I've never heard of a gap 2 years before.
In Argentina, Harry was with his girlfriend Chelsea Davy, the 19-year-old daughter of a Zimbabwean businessman close to President Mugabe. Is Harry really such a worry?
There are concerns within the royal household at Harry's immaturity. He is an immature, he's a young 20, if you like. He's not yet very much grown up. He's still the rather mischievous teenager that he was a few years ago.
A few months before her death, Diana made a humanitarian visit to war-torn Angola. She saw AIDS, malnutrition, and landmine injuries. Harry wants to continue the work cut short by her tragic death. He visited Lesotho in 2004. He's inherited her rapport with children and clearly enjoys being with them. Harry spent part of his time at an orphanage in Lesotho, where 40% of the population is believed to be infected with AIDS. While there, he made a documentary, The Forgotten Kingdom, Prince Harry in Lesotho.
I always wanted to go to an AIDS country to carry on my mother's legacy as much as I can. I don't want to take over from her because I never will. I don't think anyone can. But I want to try and carry it on to make her proud.
Harry's trip to Lesotho was fantastic for him because he is actually very caring and he does want to carry his mother's torch. And you saw how relaxed he was in front of the cameras and you saw how good he was with the kids. I think it was very good for him.
Harry will continue to take an interest in countries with AIDS problems. How well does this image of Harry sit with his wilder side?
The palace have made a huge problem for themselves. On the one hand, they're trying to tell us that here is the caring young man who is charitable, concerned about the welfare of the less well-off in much the way that his mother was. But on the other, he's behaving like a hoorah out of control. And the two cannot meet. And I think they have to decide which is the real Harry. I think they thrust him into this at far too young of age. It'd be much better for him to have got the discipline of the army behind him before they started to suggest he had this future as his mother's successor.
Is Harry the wild card in the royal family? A rich young man with a playboy image? Or the screwed-up kid who still misses his mother and mixes in bad circles?
Tony Holdsworth and Peterside wanted to come forward.
There are signs that he does take his charitable interests seriously. At polo, he was seen displaying his Lesotho souvenir bracelet to his teammates.
Despite the criticism of his sub-Diana type approach to his charitable work, I think he does genuinely take an interest in the dispossessed in the way that his mother did. I think he is aware that there are people less fortunate than himself. I think he would like to make a difference. However, he wants to be able to have a good time himself. I mean, I think one of his most attractive qualities is that he's not stuffy. He's not like the majority of the royal family, hidebound by tradition and protocol. He's a bit of a free spirit, and I think that's very attractive, and I think it comes out well. I think that's the reason why he's popular in this country.
Close observers have noticed that Harry wears a certain faded polo shirt when playing for his father's team.
Harry and William and Prince Charles have a polo team, the Highgrove polo team, and they have red and purple shirts. And Harry has a particular shirt that he likes because every time he's worn it, they've won. And it's very washed out and sort of ragged looking, but that's what he likes to do. He thinks it's a lucky shirt, so he always wears it. And Harry has it hanging out. When you see Harry on the polo field, he looks smart because he's so tall, but he's always got something little bit of trendiness about him. He's not nearly as good looking as William, but he is sexy and he's attractive because you can see the fun in him.
As in most other things, the brothers have a different approach to polo. It could almost be a metaphor for their differences in personality.
Harry is totally fearless, almost reckless, just gallops into the fray. But William sort of hangs back and is more cautious. But their polo manager said to me that William thinks about the game more. So really it ends up that they're both sort of fairly equal when it comes to their ranking on the polo field.
The royal family operates a ranking procedure among its members. Harry's occasional arrogance might be a cover for feelings of insecurity.
Harry's always felt second best. The Queen Mother in particular, if the boys walked into the room, she'd say, "William, come and sit here." And William would be next to the Queen Mother and Harry would just be forgotten. And in order to compensate for that feeling of being second best, he's become more boisterous, better at sport, funnier, naughtier.
Harry is very much his own person, easier going than the more self-contained William. He gets on well with cousins Beatrice and Eugenie and Peter and Zara Phillips.
He's much more open and accessible than William. If we want to deal with William, we have to go through intermediaries. With Harry, you can say, "Oh, look, Harry, could you just do this?" And he'll go, "Oh, all right then," or "I'll think about it," or you can deal directly with Harry. And sometimes I've noticed at the polo, when the game's finished and we're all filing stories, Harry will come over and sit down on the grass beside you and watch everybody filing, and nobody, you know, annoys him or hassles him or says anything to him, and he's just easygoing. Whereas William is very uptight, very private, very wary of the media.
There is very little to separate William and Harry except this one. The one distinction between them is William's ability to keep his life private and out of the headlines. He learnt that from an early age, I think because he was that much older when his parents were going through their terrible times in the 1990s. He resolved not to allow his life to become tabloid fodder, if you like, in the way that his mothers and fathers had.
Charles has been blamed for Harry's frequent misdemeanours. Has he really neglected his parental duties?
Prince Charles isn't the strongest of parents, and he's always said, you know, anything for a peaceful life, what can I do? But I think that when the ground rules should have been laid with William and Harry was the time that Charles and Diana were having terrible problems within their marriage, and I think it's too late now.
I think he could have had a lot more guidance, especially from his father. He has veered off the rails because he hasn't had the father figure there all the time when he's needed him.
Harry's misbehaviour needs to be curbed if he's to develop into a reliable support for Charles and William in their time as kings. The omens have not been good. How can he be turned around?
I think there is enough resource within the royal family and probably somewhere deep within Harry that will pull him back. I don't think he's going to run off and become a dissolute young man. I think he will be brought back, and I think it'll be the army that does it to him. I think it'll instill the discipline that at the moment he lacks.
These are the sons of a flawed father and a fated mother. William is preparing himself for his destiny as king. But does a fault line run through Harry's personality? Only time will tell.
Royal weddings are steeped in tradition, grand affairs that combine royalty, tradition, and old world values. Well, that's all about to change because Prince Harry dances to his own tune. Prince Charles to his son Prince William each chose the perfect British princess. Prince Harry took a different route in a very confident, independent, and drop-down gorgeous American named Meghan Markle.
All very excited, delighted for them both.
William and I are absolutely thrilled. It's such exciting news.
Well, the Queen's happy about it. If she wasn't happy, she wouldn't have given her permission.
This relationship with Meghan Markle was going to go all the way to the altar.
We look at Prince Harry and Meghan and how they came together in a whirlwind romance.
It's not about protocol, it's not about the family, it's about the two people who are in love.
It's just always nice when someone who seems really cool falls in love and gets engaged.
Super excited for her.
Just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Through expert opinion, we show you preparations from the royal venue to the cake and everything in between. We will also examine past royal weddings and how they compare to Harry and Meghan's. We will also celebrate the big day and discuss the future for this fairy tale matchup. Meghan may not be from the proper bloodlines, but no matter, she has won over the British public and captured the heart of a prince. When news of Prince Harry's new love, actress Meghan Markle, hit the internet, it rocked royal foundations and sent the press into a tailspin.
This relationship with Meghan Markle was going to go all the way to the altar, that they had never seen Harry so in love, so head-turned, and actually so happy.
In the absence of any denials from Kensington Palace or royal insiders, the world knew that the Bachelor Prince was serious about his new love.
It's an incredible love story, isn't it? An American actress meets
Prince Charming.
An onslaught of questions began to form about the romance. Where did they meet? How long? And most important, who is Miss Markle?
Meghan grew up in a family with not a lot of money. Her parents separated when she was 6 years old.
Meghan is one of our own. You know, she started as kind of a real girl from Los Angeles.
Meghan Markle is a very special, engaging woman. She's extremely clever. She's very sincere and very eloquent. And I think she's one of those people who everybody, when they meet her, falls in love with.
Markle, a successful actress and philanthropist in her own right, had no problem dealing with the intense speculation regarding her romance.
Meghan Markle is going to be a bigger interest factor than William's wife, Kate, because of the connection, because of the American connection, because of the fact that the divorcee and this sort of film star, which generates so much interest.
This is somebody who has been an actress for many years and who has become quite a big star, and also, you know, potentially could have become a really big Hollywood star.
As the romance grew from strength to strength, the engagement announcement in November of 2017 was not surprising and celebrated worldwide. Not only was everyone excited about new blood being pumped into the royal family, but that the lovable prince, who struggled through years of emotional hardship, had finally found a home for his heart. Once labeled the wild royal, Prince Harry was born and raised under the intense scrutiny of global media.
I remember the very first day that I went to Sandringham House in Norfolk, which is one of the Queen's palaces and I remember sort of walking, being shown into this white room, this royal room in Sandringham by a very attentive butler. And he said, "Oh, it's Inspector Wharf, ma'am, from London." "Oh," she said, "Ken, I don't envy you looking after my children. They can be a bloody nuisance." At which point, Harry was destamenising this vase of royal lilies on a small table. And William was attempting to play the piano. And William turned round and said, no, we're not, are we, Harry? And he sort of burbled something as a 3-year-old, fell off this table, followed by this vase of lilies that crashed on the floor. Of course, they get up and run like any kids do. And Diana says, "Come here, both of you, come here," and runs out of the room. And I hadn't said a word.
He performed his first royal duties as a small child and nearly drowned in scandal as a young adult, all before witnessing the atrocities of war in an active combat role while serving in the British Army.
I remember him as a 3-year-old. He was never out of khaki uniforms. This guy was a soldier in waiting. And luckily, he had every encouragement from his father and his mother.
I got here on Christmas Eve. Most of the guys were pretty bummed that I was here because nothing was happening for the first few days that I was here, but things are picking up again.
But he achieved that. He went to the military academy at Sandhurst. He sort of fought his battle in Afghanistan. But of course, he realised that this wasn't an army life forever because of the risks involved. You know, he himself had to be protected in Afghanistan. And he realised that after the first tour and the second tour, he couldn't really justify that. And the only thing that let him down was the fact that he was a member of the royal family.
But there is no doubt that the singular, most painful event in the young prince's life was his mother's death in 1997. The world watched Harry, age 12, walk behind his mother's coffin as the funeral procession wove through London to Westminster Abbey.
A lot of people hold Harry in particular affection actually around the world. They remember that image of Harry walking behind his mother's coffin.
Prince Harry, now an activist for mental health, revealed that decades of chaos followed this life-altering loss.
Harry has come from a broken home. Harry is admitted to having mental health issues, having to come to terms with the death of his mother. It actually took him 20 years to admit that he did have these mental health issues, and he did something about it.
He stumbled publicly, and the world got to see it all. The Nazi costume worn to a fancy dress party, the racial nicknames doled out to fellow Sandhurst cadets, and strip billards in Las Vegas with nude photos to boot.
Harry has grown up a lot in the last few years, if we remember the kind of celebrity kind of lifestyle he was living, and some of those parties he was going to, and those pictures of him that were, you know, less than desirable as far as the Queen was concerned.
We've seen Harry struggle throughout the years, you know, whether it's through acting out with drugs or other things.
Harry acted out, as most young adults do, except his mistakes were public.
He's been sort of a typical teenage boy, a typical young 20-something boy, but he's had to do it in the public eye on the world stage.
Even apologies were critiqued and judged. Beyond the paparazzi noise, it became clear that this was not a usual teenage rebellion. Harry was suffering.
Harry, in every sense of the word, is a carbon copy of his mother in so many ways. You know, he has that sort of risk element attached to his life. He likes a joke, he gets things wrong, you know, but he learns from his mistakes. You know, I know people have given him a bit of a kicking in the past for the things that in some people's words, brought discredit on the royal family. But he's learned from his mistakes. And in that sense, you know, that gives him that normality, a word that Diana was using often. You know, I just want my kids to be normal. I want to be normal.
Who knows what the situation would be, or what the world would be like if she was still around. So, no, there's all sorts of thoughts and emotions that come running through, especially the fact that I was here last in 1993, running around with, you know, Donald Duck and all those characters with her, and now I'm back here, you know, 31 years old, and you know, try my best to make her proud.
Harry's transformation has been actually a remarkable one, because we've seen his life take really many different paths. We've seen him get into trouble for underage drinking, for smoking cannabis, for dressing up as a Nazi at a friend's birthday party, you know, for ending up without any clothes on more recently in Vegas. And each time these things happen, the public, I think, forgive Harry, and I think they probably forgive him because he's got a place in all of our hearts. I don't think anyone will ever forget that very, very striking and heartfelt image of him walking behind his mother's coffin. He was 12 years old when he lost his mother.
Prince Harry found inspiration for change through the unconditional support of his brother, Prince William, who gave Harry a hearty dose of the candid honesty he needed. Amidst the turmoil of grief, adolescence, and life as a royal, the influence of Diana's passion for humanitarian work, and specifically HIV, remained with Harry. After visiting Lesotho in his gap year, Harry and Prince Seeiso of Lesotho formed the Sintabali organization in 2016.
The charity started in 2006, and it was started by Prince Harry and also Prince Seeiso of Lesotho. And it followed a visit that Harry made in 2004. He spent a couple of months up in the mountains in Lesotho. It's a very remote area. And he was really struck particularly by the plight of the children there. So there are so many vulnerable children in Lesotho. It's a very poor country, and it has been affected very seriously by the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So 1 in 3 children are orphaned as a result of the epidemic.
It's behind the scenes up in the mountains where, you know, the sort of volunteer nurses are doing sort of house runs to go and basically help these, you know, really sick people, not just kids but sort of elderly people as well, who are dying of AIDS, lying in their beds with no access to a hospital, no access to a clinic.
Sintabali means forget-me-not in Lesotho's, and was the word deliberately chosen to represent both Prince's late mothers.
The work that we do in Lesotho and Botswana, and soon Malawi, is to provide a safe space for children who are living with HIV to be able to learn more about living with HIV, be able to build confidence and resilience about how they stay healthy. Why Lesotho was because he was there, and obviously he saw and witnessed himself the situation that some of the young people were in, and so he just responded to that. But obviously it does stem from interest in support in following on his mother started in terms of breaking down stigma around HIV.
I asked friends of mine choosing where I should go for my gap year, and it was sort of based around what my mother had been doing, and I wanted to sort of carry that on. And what better place than to do it here? It's got a problem with AIDS, and there's lots of children. I'm sure she knew this place, but we decided trying to start something slightly new.
Carrying the torch for his mother, the People's Princess, humanitarian work is critical in Prince Harry's role as a royal.
Prince Harry's been very, very involved and very actively involved in the charity from the very beginning, from the very start. He regularly attends board meetings. He has to sign off the strategy. In addition to that, he loves being out in the field. And the reason for that, really, he's got a real, genuine empathy with young people, with kids. They really kind of are massively attracted to him.
We've seen him with his nephew and niece. We've seen him with children, whether it's at Centre Bali and Lesotho. We've seen him with children in hospital. We've seen him in nursery schools. We've seen him at schools. We've seen him with people at the Invictus Games. Harry is a people person, but there is something lacking in his life.
Harry's mischievous nature has always won hearts, even while struggling on the inside. The prince's rugged good looks and charming ways attracted potential suitors. Chelsea Davy was one such lady and became Prince Harry's on and off girlfriend from 2004 to 2011.
Chelsea Davy was a long term, but that fizzled out. I don't think Chelsea Davy was prepared to go into the Goldfish Bowl.
Sometimes the timing just isn't right, and this relationship was not to be. In 2012, his casual dating came to a halt again when his cousin, Princess Eugenie, introduced him to Cressida Bonus.
He was an actor. She didn't want to. She wanted to pursue an acting career.
This relationship ended in 2014 when royal public life became too much for Cressida.
There were points when I think most people thought that the relationship might end with an engagement, but actually neither of those girlfriends wanted the intense spotlight that comes with being a royal girlfriend. They didn't want that level of intrusion in their lives, and ultimately they weren't prepared to make the sacrifice that they needed to make to be with Prince Harry.
Through ups and downs, Harry has been able to find himself, and now his soulmate. In 2016, when a friend in Toronto introduced Meghan Markle to a prince, perhaps in some way, the universe knew it was time.
I didn't know much about him, and so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice?
Already a successful actress and well-known humanitarian, 36-year-old Meghan Markle is accustomed to living in the spotlight. But in November 2017, her engagement to Prince Harry triggered an escalation of media attention that the royal-to-be had probably never experienced before. It's the stuff of fairy tales, another fantastical royal wedding to inspire a nation. But sadly, the joy of this pending union has been splintered by the worst of those in the media since the news of their courtship broke.
The difficulty, of course, with Prince Harry finding love with a famous actress was exactly that. She was a famous actress. At the time that the romance was actually revealed in the papers, I remember she was promoting a clothing line for Reitman's, the Canadian department store, and she was having to do a lot of press around that. Well, how could you do press interviews around a clothing line and people not want to talk about Prince Harry? So I think they realised early on, particularly at the palace, that there was a potential conflict of interest. It's why we saw her posting less on Instagram. It's why we saw her eventually close down her lifestyle blog and eventually give up her career as an actress, which is what she's done to marry Harry.
She's going to have to be very careful of what goes on social media now. I mean, it's a royal rule of thumb that there's no selfies. And we saw that in her first day out in Nottingham when she was taking photos with people. She was like, no, I'm not allowed, no selfies.
Markle is a biracial American, an actress, and a divorcee. And while most people find this union a beautiful and refreshing reflection on what the 21st century should reflect, it made Markle an immediate target for the dark media, who were quick to release bigoted, racially charged slurs.
There's a misconception that because I have worked in the entertainment industry that this would be something I would be familiar with, but even though I'd been on my show for, I guess, 6 years at that point, and working before that, I've never been part of tabloid culture. I've never been in pop culture.
You know, Meghan certainly felt that the British press were out to get her. I don't think the press were out to get her as such. I think they were out to find out as much as they could about her. You know, her ex-husband being doorstepped, her mother having reporters turning up asking questions, all of her friends being contacted.
I haven't met him, but I mean, I've spoken to Meg a couple of times. They're so happy and so in love, and it's so normal. And
it's not a nice experience. It's one that Harry has spoken about and has always recognised. It's the one experience that immediately puts a potential girlfriend off, and of course it would do.
That line between public and private life is almost non-existent anymore, and we will continue to do our best to ensure that there is the line. I tried to warn you as much as possible, but I think both of us were totally surprised by the reaction.
Internet trolls pounced, and a media storm of sexist and bigoted articles were released. This appalling lack of decency made it impossible not to ponder the similarities between Meghan and Harry's late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, who was the subject of such intense media scrutiny that most believe the paparazzi caused her tragic death.
And those people that caused the accident, instead of helping, were taking photographs of her dying on the back seat. And then those photographs made their way back to news desks in this country.
This was all pre-social media. You know, the genuine paparazzis were the guys with a camera around their neck, and the sort of Fleet Street mob, you know, the national newspapers. Now we've got this extraordinary social media where everybody with a smartphone is a potential paparazzi.
I think I can very safely say, as naive as it sounds now, having gone through this learning curve in the past year and a half, I did not have any understanding of just what it would be like.
Nowadays, it's not just the TV we'll be watching people's social media. We'll be going onto their Instagrams and going onto their Twitter and their Snapchats and their Facebooks to see what their opinion is. You know, it's not just about, in the olden days, you know, in Diana time, you know, before then, you would have a royal correspondent or a fashion expert just saying their opinion. Now you have millions of people's opinions.
Not so long ago, Kate Middleton endured similar scrutiny and had to take legal action to protect herself. But this is 2018. Miss Markle is engaged to a man who sadly knows too well the damage an obsessive media can inflict.
I think that Harry's probably being pretty cool throughout this whole ride. He's experienced that sort of back and forth of not totally being ready for this royal family and the living under the microscope in the way that he has had to. And I think he's probably been a really great coach and mentor for Meghan through this to kind of prepare her for what she's about to experience.
It's not just, of course, her career. In terms of what Meghan is going to have to learn, she's going to have to learn who her friends are. She's going to have to learn who she can trust. She's going to have to get used to having a protection officer 24/7. She's going to have to get used to everything in her life. Absolutely everything, from what she wears, to who she's seen with, to where she goes for her facials, to being photographed absolutely everywhere in every situation.
I think you can have as many conversations as you want and try and prepare as much as possible, but we were totally unprepared for what happened after that.
It's funny because Harry can relate to that. When he was bad boy Harry, you know, 3-4 years ago, he started up a fake Facebook account. He was Spike Wells, and that's how he met these girls in Vegas. And, you know, the palace had to shut that down.
This time, Buckingham Palace's response was direct and swift when it came to the defense of Meghan Markle. They called out the dark media and put a swift end to their trolling. However, with Meghan having experience in Hollywood, this sort of scrutiny was an everyday occurrence for her. Not only could she handle negative comments on various social sites, but she was a pro with the paparazzi and media.
I think the reaction to Meghan is getting better in the press. I think it was ugly to begin with. I think the press in the UK really went hard on her. And Meghan pointed that out in her interview that she had with Harry. She said, you know, I don't even read it anymore.
I think we were just hit so hard at the beginning with a lot of mistruths that I made the choice to not read anything, positive or negative.
I think Meghan is used to tabloid spreads. I think the fact of the matter is she has modelled, she has been an up-and-coming actress who's did very well. She's done probably some things that she regrets in the past. She's been married for one, you know, which is a big story. She's divorced. The headlines are already been out there for her, so I don't think really anything can faze her.
We think that Meghan, soon to be the Duchess of Sussex, has far more to offer the royal family than the critics are crying about.
I think you're going to see with Meghan a bit of magic, I think, to the royal family, that sprinkling of stardust.
Meghan Markle is the epitome of a true Californian, born and raised by her Emmy Award-winning father and her mother, a social worker and yoga instructor.
Meghan grew up in a family with not a lot of money. Her parents separated when she was 6 years old. Her dad actually won the lottery when she was 9 for $750,000 US, which allowed Meghan to go to Northwestern School just outside Chicago, which is an amazing university. Had that not happened, she would have never had that opportunity. But I bet you, Meghan still would have been where she is today had she not gone to that university.
Meghan is one of our own. You know, she started as kind of a real girl from Los Angeles. She went to Northwestern where she majored in theater and international relations. And then obviously she became a TV star, but she was still fairly below the radar for people that didn't watch Suits. So with Meghan, there is this sense of a real girl just like us, married into the royal family and ascended to this lofty position.
Her heritage and a relatively privileged West Coast life seem to have given Meghan a unique lens through which she navigates the world. It's plain to see that she's worked tirelessly to carve out an incredible, successful career with grace and elegance long before meeting her prince. There's also no need for concern by the royal establishment over Meghan's stamina for work. Her resume makes us wonder where she gets her energy. Working as a calligrapher to make ends meet while auditioning tirelessly alongside thousands of other acting hopefuls in LA and playing smaller roles for years. Meghan's tenacity paid off when she landed the role of Rachel Zane in Suits in 2011.
There's a long list of things that don't qualify her to be a royal bride. But the truth is, if you delve a little bit deeper into who Meghan is and the roles that she's had in the past, she actually is quite a solid fit for Harry. And I think that the fact that she was an actress on a hit TV show has taught her a lot and will prepare her for this role.
Miss Markle has never been the girl in the corner either. When it comes to fighting for the right causes, at the tender age of 11, she fought for and won a battle against a national company to change its sexist material.
It's about 1 out of every 3 commercials is gonna say something that's gonna hurt somebody's feeling.
Her willingness to work freely for humanitarian causes was well documented long before meeting her prince.
I am proud to be a woman and a feminist.
A relentless advocate for women's rights, Markle has campaigned on this issue with the United Nations since 2015.
Women need a seat at the table. They need an invitation to be seated there. And in some cases, where this isn't available, well then you know what? Then they need to create their own table.
Meghan's an ambassador for World Vision Canada. We saw her go to Rwanda on a water mission. And I think that those are things that Meghan loves and is passionate about. And she was really interested in those things before even having met Harry or thought up this idea of becoming a princess. So I think that that says a lot, is that this is genuinely something that's in her and not that she's playing it to be.
I work with Meghan on a thing called the Global Gift Gala, which is a big event that we do in London to raise awareness for many different charities. The charity we worked with was called Caldwell Children, which is for disabled children. Meghan hosted it, and she got very involved in what we did, and she wanted to learn about the charity. She wanted to learn about how we benefit the children.
It appears that Meghan will fit right into life as a royal, and bringing her grace, poise, and proven work ethic, and a seemingly inherent desire to help others.
Both of us have passions for wanting to make change for good, and with lots of young people running around the Commonwealth. That's where we're going to spend most of our time, hopefully.
And it was really one of the first things we connected on. It was one of the first things we started talking about when we met, was just the different things that we wanted to do in the world and how passionate we were about seeing change, I think.
For anyone obsessed with the next royal romance, the conjecture ended in October 2016, when news of Prince Harry and American actress Meghan Markle's relationship broke.
I received probably 15 emails and tweets kind of all at once when the news broke.
Instead of the excitement dissipating, the buzz of this unexpected romance broke records.
We found out that she was a little bit older than him, that she, obviously was a famous actress in her own right.
And I immediately started Googling her and was like, okay, this girl, she's beautiful, she's smart, so it definitely was exciting and intriguing.
Meghan was the most Googled woman in 2017. It's what the public wanted. It was a love story, it was exciting.
When the beans spilled that they met through a mutual friend, who this royal matchmaker was became the hottest mystery in social media. There have been many hints, but no one has confirmed or denied Cupid's identity yet.
We were introduced actually by a mutual friend who
we should protect her privacy and not reveal too much of that.
And but it was literally through her, and then we met once and then twice back to back, 2 dates in London last July.
With the story of how they met put to bed, a new obsession took over royal fans. Is Meghan Markle actually the one?
It was, I think, about 3, maybe 4 weeks later that I managed to persuade her to come and join me in Botswana.
Right off the bat, he took Meghan with him to Botswana to celebrate her birthday and experience his glamping.
Then, in 2016, it became apparent that this relationship was significant. According to Royal Watchers, when Harry took Meghan to his best friend's wedding in Jamaica, gossip turned into a genuine buzz. The 3-day Jamaican celebration was the best opportunity yet for Harry to introduce Meghan to his inner circle of friends. And it was reported that they fell in love with her too. The romantic occasion provided the perfect opportunity for the pair to show their affection for one another.
We had a good 5-6 months almost with just privacy, which was amazing. Very early on, when we realized we were going to commit to each other, that we knew we had to invest the time and the energy and whatever it took to make that happen.
I don't think you've had any idea what time zone you've been on for the last 1.5 years.
No.
Coming over here 4 days or a week and then going back and then straight into filming the next day, 4 a.m. wake-up calls on a Monday, straight into set.
The media broke into a frenzy when word got out that the couple would be making their first public appearance together at the 2017 Invictus Games, a major sporting event for wounded veterans initiated in 2014 by Prince Harry.
1 week ago, I told you that you needed to be ready, but even I could not have been ready for the scale of what we witnessed at these games.
The Invictus Games are a personal and important event for him. So when Harry invited Meghan's mother, Doria Radland, to join them at the closing ceremony, it was clear that this romance is the real deal and that Harry had Doria's blessing.
It's just how differently they're doing things, and whether it's that sort of very unusual show of affection at the Invictus Games, where Harry kissed Meghan not just in front of his future mother-in-law, but in front of the world.
The speculation changed course. Now everyone wanted to know when and how a proposal would occur. But importantly, was Meghan going to be accepted by the royal family? And was the Queen going to permit such a union?
I think the Queen's definitely excited about this. I think if anything, she's just more excited about the fact that Harry's finally going to now be off the market.
I think there's no reason to think the Queen wouldn't be anything other than delighted about this marriage. She's a devoted grandmother. She played a critical role in Harry's life as a young man after Diana's death.
Let's be honest, she's in her 90s, so she wants to make sure that everything's right before she goes. And I think she's doing it really well. She's become much more progressive, she's become much more relatable, she has allowed things that potentially might not have been allowed before to happen. She understands too that if the royal family is going to carry on, that we need to see them being modernised. We need to feel that we can actually be a part of their lives.
Meghan had already met Prince Harry's father, Prince Charles, and his wife Camilla. She was now good friends with Prince William and Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge.
You know, I've been seeing her for a period of time when I literally didn't tell anybody at all. And then William was longing to meet her, and so was Catherine. So, you know, they're being our neighbours. We managed to get that in quite a few times now. And Catherine's been absolutely
wonderful,
amazing, as is William as well. You know, fantastic support. And then my father as well. We had a couple of, no more than that.
We had
a handful of teas and meetings, and
we've just had a really nice time getting to know them and progressively helping me feel a part of not just the institution, but also part of the family, which has been really, really special.
The breasts were held at the prospect of meeting the Queen. We didn't have to wait long. When Harry whisked Meghan away on a birthday holiday to Botswana, the couple returned and made a beeline for Balmoral. The consensus is that it was at this summer residence of the Queen that Prince Harry was able to make a formal introduction to the 91-year-old monarch.
It's incredible, to be able to meet her through his lens, not just with his honor and respect for her as the monarch, but the love that he has for her as his grandmother. All of those layers have been so important for me, so that when I met her, I had such a deep understanding and, of course, incredible respect for being able to have that time with her. And we've had she's an incredible woman.
As the couple's relationship blossomed, sweeping changes were coming for Miss Markle and her 7-year stint playing Rachel Zane, the feisty paralegal in the hit show Suits. The show's creator, Aaron Korsh, and his writers carefully planned for what they saw as inevitable. They gradually wrote Rachel Zane out of the series.
It's a new chapter, right? And also keep in mind, I've been working on my show for 7 years. So we were very, very fortunate to be able to have that sort of longevity on a series. And for me, once we hit the 100-episode marker, I thought, you know what, I have ticked this box, and I feel really proud of the work I've done there. And now it's time to, as you said, work as a team with you. Yeah.
The anticipation of an engagement continued to build, and finally, a formal announcement by Clarence House was made. Meghan Markle would become a member of the British royal family.
And tell us, how did you propose? Was it romantic?
The occasion itself will generate global television audiences, news items. Already they're planning it. We're already, 5 months away.
It is not lost us that a significant person is missing from this happy event.
I spoke to a veteran royal reporter who spent years photographing Diana, who took the very first pictures of Meghan and Harry kissing at the Polo last May. He said he hadn't taken pictures like that of the royals since Diana.
Diana, Harry's mother, has striking similarities with Meghan Markle, and Harry thinks they would have been great pals.
She would be over the moon, jumping up and down, so excited for me. But then, as I said, would have probably been best friends with Meghan.
Diana would have liked the way that Harry had grown up. I mean, obviously, he was in his early teens when, sadly, his mother died in that tragic accident in Paris. But, he survived that. He, as a young lad, walked behind his mother's coffin, in front of the sort of world's media. And he talks about it openly now. And so in that sense, his mother would have been exceptionally proud of him.
Well, I think Diana would be thrilled to see William and Harry settle down with, two really perfect brides, actually. Kate is so perfect for the role that she has to fulfill. And I think Meghan's, going to be a great success at all. And she's already proved to be very suitable in so many ways. They make the princes happy, and I think that's probably more important to Diana than anything else. She said she wanted them to marry for love.
Diana was a very hands-on individual. So in that sense, would have been delighted with the way that William had found his love, his wife at university. And in the same way that no pressure was put on Harry to find his life.
Obviously, not being able to meet his mom, it's so important to me to know that she's a part of this with us, and I think in being able to meet just different people who are so important to his mom, I'm able to, in some way, know a part of her through them and, of course, through him.
But Prince Harry found a way to ensure that a part of Diana will always be present and designed a ring that used 2 of his mother's diamonds with his own from Botswana. The ring is a beautiful legacy both to their union and Diana.
The ring is obviously yellow gold because that's her favourite, and the main stone itself are sourced from Botswana, and the little diamonds either side are from my mother's jewellery collection to make sure that she's with us on this crazy journey together. And
it's beautiful, and he designed it. It's incredible.
Meghan Markle has a special kind of sparkle. Her bright smile and demeanor have that Hollywood glamour. Her warmth and genuine openness will win over the British. You can't fake that.
This is the most important thing, in my view, that's happened to the royal family for centuries.
I think Meghan Markle is the best thing to happen to the monarchy in years. She's young, she understands the zeitgeist, she understands what people want, and she really connects with people in a way that we also saw with Princess Diana. And so I think that it's only a good thing that we have Meghan in there. She's sort of shaking off the cobwebs and moving the royal family firmly into the 21st century.
There's no denying that Meghan Markle's elegant fashion style turns heads wherever she goes. Even before her engagement to Prince Harry, Meghan's stylish appearance grabbed the attention of the fashion world. Since news broke of her relationship with Prince Harry, Meghan has continued to wear her favorite labels: Mother, Erdem, Line, and Misha Nunu, to name a few.
When they first made their public appearance announcing that they were engaged, she had on a white trench coat that was made by a Canadian company called Line. She orders a lot of her clothes from there. It's sold out within the hour. In her interview with Harry, chatting through the engagement and how they met, she was wearing a dress from an Italian company. Same thing, sold it within an hour.
Inherently, Markle has already shown that her love for fashion and attention-grabbing style can boost her humanitarian work, just like her fiancé's late mother, Diana.
I love Meghan. I think that it's amazing that she's very different from the British mold. I think that she's a breath of fresh air that's very necessary in the royal family. We've seen it with her in terms of how she dresses, how she wears pants to events, how she does her hair, you know, unlike, say, Kate Middleton or some of the other royals who always look very perfectly coiffed.
Meghan's style is frequently compared to her future sister-in-law.
Princess Kate is quintessentially English. You know, everything that she wore from when she was at university was very sort of twin set and pearls, very sort of Chelsea girl, that kind of feeling that it's very, you know, what you expect to read when you open up Horse and Hound or Tatler. But you never see her in sweatshirts or sweatpants and some Uggs. Whereas someone like Meghan has been brought up on Uggs and sweatpants because obviously she's been on set so many times. So she's gone from looking quite, you know, offset when you are quite so dowdy and you don't really care about everything, to being on set where she's ultra glamorous, and you know, she's been at numerous award ceremonies, and she's also somebody who's modelled for magazines and modelled in fashion spreads.
With Kate, over the years, we've seen her come into her own. She's wearing these very expensive outfits, whereas with Meghan, we've seen her wear jeans, we've seen her wear ripped jeans, we've seen her looking very sort of normal and accessible when going to high-profile events, unlike Kate, who always looks very perfect.
The Duchess of Cambridge is also famous for her classic, modern style. There are many similarities. Both have the ability to influence sales with the Kate effect and the Meghan sparkle.
One thing that we've noticed with the style, first starting with Princess Diana and then Kate and now Meghan, is that all of these bits of clothing and these, you know, staple accessories and tops and dresses, they're so accessible, right? I mean, you can really quickly get online and find out where's that top from. There'll be a link to buy it right then and there.
I definitely think that Meghan, like Kate, has an effect when it comes to selling clothing. We've seen it when she wears something immediately. There are now style blogs devoted to Kate. There are now Twitter accounts devoted to Meghan.
They've already made headlines at a joint event with their elegant style.
Kate portrays something that people want. Meghan portrays something that is much more approachable that people can get right away.
Some were concerned that a rivalry could be in the works, but it seems the two will have a close relationship, much like another royal wifey pairing.
I think it's impossible to not compare Kate and Meghan with Diana and Sarah. In the case of Diana, she was married to the heir, and then you have Sarah Ferguson. She's this breath of fresh air. You know, she's always in the news for doing sort of silly or dramatic things. She has a great sense of humor, and you really do see that comparison between Kate and Meghan, where Kate is a little more buttoned up, she has more restrictions, whereas Meghan is kind of the playful one. She's the new, bright, young, shiny thing.
We think Meghan meshes her own relaxed Californian fashion style beautifully with her new British role, and this is something uniquely hers. We also love that her fashion choices are diverse and inclusive, and touch on a desire to experience new trajectories.
Meghan Markle wears a lot more ready-wear type of clothing. And so what you're going to have is fashion designers that are making ready-wear attire where they can go ahead and produce it quickly, sell it, and then as soon as that inventory sells out, Meghan Markle will go ahead and put her Markle spin on it again, and then it will start a whole new trend of clothing along that ready-to-wear business attire. Meghan portrays something that people can get right away. And so it's something that people can find at their local department store, whether it's Nordstrom's or Macy's.
Oh, do I love
Guilty as charged.
online shop. Of course, especially with our hours too.
So
it's accurate,
easy.
right? It's like if I have downtime in my trailer.
Speaking of trying new things, Meghan is a huge fan of wine. Her favorite, a Tignanello, led Meghan to name her former blog, The Tig.
The namesake is from a wine called Tignanello, but in the States we sort of bastardize the name and say Tignanello. And it was my first sip of wine where I said, oh my gosh, what is this? Like I said to the bartender, what am I drinking? He's like, just call it the Tig.
This moment revealed to Meghan that to live is to be curious and insatiable in living one's life. From then on, all aha moments became a Tig moment for Meghan.
Someone had always asked me about, fans especially once the show started, travel advice or food, restaurant advice, fashion of course. And I said, let me create a hub where I can have all of that stuff there that's really aspirational but attainable.
Meghan has remarked that the best part of discovering great wine is the adventure taken to find it, meeting the winemakers. However, Tignanello is not her only favorite. Anything red, as she calls it, opening the door for the popular Central Coast Pinot Noir as well.
So Meghan being from California, I can see her bringing Harry on an adventure up here through the Central Coast. Winding roads, it's beautiful scenery. So I can see them coming, kind of finding the different spots that they like. Pinot Noir is a varietal, and it is one of those grapes that is very engaging and captures your. It's not surprising, that's one of her favorite ones. And cool climate Pinot Noirs tend to just be so beautiful. They have such pretty notes and cherries, cherry blossoms, some hints of raspberry, some red currants. It would definitely be something that I see Meghan and Prince Harry enjoying together.
Meghan is also a self-proclaimed foodie. Her philosophies on food and eating have the potential to become an incredibly positive influence on young people. Meghan advocates lifestyle eating over dieting and is open about her years of teenage angst about weight and beauty. We love that she's such a fantastic role model, but is also not afraid to burst out the treats now and then. Markle's instinctive humanitarian side led to her adoption of Bogart and Guy, her two canine companions.
I have two dogs that I've had for quite a long time, both my rescue pups, and one is now staying with very close friends, and my other little guy is, yes, he's in the UK. He's been here for a while. Okay.
They say that dogs have the innate ability to judge good and bad, and even the royal corgis, usually the toughest audience of all, according to Prince Harry, have embraced Meghan into the royal family.
For the last 33 years been barked at. This one walks in absolutely nothing.
Just laying on my feet during tea. It was very sweet.
And I was just like, oh.
That definitely scored a few points with the Queen.
Boom.
However, it hasn't all been smooth sailing for royal romances. Many eyebrows were raised when it was revealed that Meghan Markle was not only American, but a divorcee. This royal union is a case of love comes first, as it was with King Edward, whose actions may have helped pave the way for this love story to unfold.
The inevitable comparison between Meghan and Wallis Simpson has of course been made in the press because Meghan Markle will become the first American divorcee to marry into the royal family in 80 years. Fact, times have changed.
Of course, for some people, you know, that immediately creates parallels because they think of the last time an American wanted to marry into the royal family, which of course was Wallis Simpson. And people draw parallels and say, oh, but isn't it amazing how far we've moved on? And actually, I mean, yes, we have, but Edward VIII was king at the time that he wanted to marry Wallis Simpson.
His Royal Highness King Edward VIII's marriage to American divorcee Wallis Simpson in 1937 is one of the most significant romantic scandals in British history. So great was the monarch's love for Wallis Simpson that Edward abdicated the throne to marry her.
Edward was direct in line to the throne. He gave up his throne because he wasn't prepared to be king without, as he put it, the help and support of the woman he loved. So he abdicated, and they went off to Paris and got married and never lived happily ever after from then on.
There are striking similarities between King Edward VIII's marriage to Wallis Simpson and Harry's pending nuptials to Meghan Markle. Wallis was American, as is Markle. But there are interesting distinctions too.
Harry is fifth, soon to be sixth in line to the throne, so it's far less significant the fact that he's marrying an American actress, a mixed race actress, a woman who's 36 and been married before.
Meghan is a very different person. She's been married before, she's a divorcee. Charles was married before, Camilla was married before, both divorced, they got married.
For Edward and Wallis, marriage to a two-time divorcee was at the time immoral, and with World War II looming, the British people needed a strong monarch.
Harry, unlike his predecessor, Edward, is not heir to the throne. He's not king. And in fact, because there are now several heirs with William, he never will be king. When Edward wanted to marry Wallis Simpson, it was literally a constitutional crisis. It was, absolutely unfathomable to the people. In terms of Harry wanting to marry Meghan, he's fifth or sixth in line for the throne. He's way down the line. There isn't really the worry that we'll have an American queen on the throne. So I think that Harry has a lot of flexibility and freedom in being able to marry for love instead of having to have an eye toward duty.
A lot of comparisons have been, floated about Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson. Well, of course, that was in the 1930s, 1936. We're looking at a totally different royal family then. This was a non-starter. But then, Wallis Simpson was a divorcee, and there was some interesting history around that time. But the royal family have progressed, following his abdication.
The responsibility of the monarch was to the Church of England, and the church had no time for a divorcee as future queen.
It was a stigma. You talked about it in hushed terms. If somebody was divorced, you thought, oh, no, I'm not terribly sure I can socialize with that person. It's no longer a stigma. It's a fact of life. People get married, they don't like each other anymore, they get divorced. We've moved a long way from the days in the 1930s when divorce was frowned upon by the Church of England.
Britain's royal past is intimately bound with religion. Even Meghan Markle, in 21st century Britain, was baptized before her wedding day. But no other union rocked a nation to its spiritual core than that of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn in the 1500s. King Henry, already married to Queen Catherine of Aragon, decided Anne would be his and plotted to have his marriage to Queen Catherine made void. Rebelling against the Pope's intense opposition, King Henry married Boleyn in a secret ceremony. This marriage changed the religious culture of England forever. The Church of England came under the stewardship of the monarchy, and Roman Catholicism lost its footing.
And Anne Boleyn, of course, was ultimately charged with adultery, incest and witchcraft, and then burnt or had a head chopped off rather.
Since the ill-fated marriage of Anne Boleyn and King Henry, times have changed, and one need look no further than Prince Harry's very own brother, Prince William's modern-day romance with his college sweetheart, Kate Middleton. In fact, Harry could be thanking his older brother William for laying the foundation for a modern-day royal union.
It was actually Diana who told William and Harry to marry for love. You know, when they married, it should be for love. And I think that that's exactly what they've done. It's certainly what William's done, and it's what Harry is doing too.
William and Harry have learnt from the past royal wedding. They saw their mum unhappy in her wedding, and they didn't want that for themselves. I think that they've realized that they can be happy, and it's up to them to make themselves happy. And I think actually Queen Elizabeth has recognized that also, and that's why she's been so understanding.
You have to look at the choices that William and Harry have made and the women that they are with. Kate, a commoner, not of blue blood, not perhaps the aristocrat that we might have picked for Prince William, but that marriage and that relationship is and has been, you know, hugely successful for 10 years.
Now England's beloved Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, the paparazzi incessantly reported on Kate's lineage of coal miners, blue-collar workers, and the lack of any aristocracy.
From what I've seen of Meghan so far, if you were going to compare her to anyone, I wouldn't be comparing her to Kate, because I think they're two very different women. Yes, they're the same age. Yes, they've fallen in love with princes, but actually that's where the similarities end.
The American press is bound and determined to sort of pit Kate against Meghan. But the fact is, they're very different people.
Meghan marries into the royal family, a famous actress in her own right, a divorcee, she's got history, you know, there's a whole background to her, whereas, you know, Kate married in, I almost say, a blank canvas. You know, her longest term relationship of 10 years was with Prince William. She didn't have a full-time job as such.
Kate is a mother, soon to be mother of 3. I think that Kate has had an extraordinary burden being the only sort of young, visible royal in the spotlight. And now that Meghan is coming into the picture, there's room for Kate to kind of take a step back, hopefully to breathe a little.
We are delighted that Meghan Markle's fairy tale romance is a reflection of how far royal traditions have evolved, and we can't wait to see her sparkle on her wedding day.
Once the Cambridge's third baby arrives, Harry will move down the order of succession and he will become 6th in line to the throne. And because of that, it's incredibly unlikely that he is going to be king. So he has a very different role from William. So I think Meghan and Harry will be a different couple to William and Kate. They have different roles, different purposes. Nonetheless, both are meaningful. You know, Harry and Meghan have that freedom, I think, to perhaps push royal boundaries a little bit more than William and Kate would be able to do.
In a monarchy where the very Queen herself, in her 93rd year, her husband, 96, you know, yeah, they have a great longevity, but no one lives forever. So in the next decade, there are going to be huge changes, and Meghan and Harry will be front runners in that change, whether they go second to William, who might become king, or whether his father decides he doesn't want to be king, or whether the Americans get fed up with Camilla. I don't know, there are so many different options open at the moment that this sort of new group of royalty, of which Meghan is now part of, is going to be instrumental in the changes that lie ahead.
This engagement is definitely a sign of modernisation in the royal family. It's really shown them to be progressive. It's shown the Queen actually thinking, okay, I want my grandchildren to be happy. This is about happiness rather than protocol.
It's just a very different time for the monarchy, and William and Harry are unwilling to let these sort of old gray men at the palace tell them what to do.
Princess Diana wanted William and Harry to grow up as normal boys. Well, normal boys will, you know, travel the world in the early 2000s and go to Vegas and be in Canada and meet women from around the world.
With Meghan going to the royal family, it helps out the royals become a lot more approachable to not just the British, but the Americans. And so it makes it almost makes the royals one of us, a little bit closer to becoming one of us.
After the excitement of the engagement announcement, the wedding day promises to deliver the stuff that fairy tales are made of.
This is a massive deal, and it's not just the day, you know, it's a really big run-up from everything.
It's a massive marketing platform for the UK.
This is much more than just a wedding, it's a cultural shift.
Courtiers have said that they want their day to be one of joy and happiness and for the public to be as much a part of it as possible, and they will be. We know it's going to be televised.
For William's and Kate's wedding, all the royal pomp and circumstance was on display. Grand carriages, women in big hats, and a tiara for the princess-to-be. Harry and Meghan's big day will be equally as impressive.
She's going to be seen by billions of people. The whole world is going to take a picture of her and watch her. So it's very important to make sure that you look perfect. So she will rehearse her look probably 2 or 3 times before she actually gets to the day before the wedding.
You know, how life-changing is this? Well, it's a huge life changer. Because suddenly, you know, one minute you're Meghan Markle, the actress, and whatever, going anywhere. Next thing you're a princess of the realm of the United Kingdom.
You know, you've got to think about her. She's going to be seen from every angle. It's 360 Meghan Markle, you know. It's not just one angle.
Oh, Meghan, how are you feeling?
She has to think about everything. And what's great about her is having that TV background. She understands that. Having that red carpet, you know, readiness. She understands she has to look great from every angle.
Though having chosen a, quote, smaller venue, Windsor Castle, as opposed to Westminster Abbey, the amount of spectators and A-list guests will be out in droves.
It's going to be very interesting because the royal wedding won't be in London. First of all, it's going to be in Windsor, which is a beautiful place. But I think what's going to be very interesting is, first of all, how are the massive crowds going to be managed? Because that whole place is going to be full of so many tourists, so many people from London coming up and wanting to see or get a glimpse of the royal family.
For Meghan, there has been a great deal of speculation as to the designer of her special wedding gown and who exactly is on her guest list. She is known to have quite the A-list of friends and work associates.
I doubt whether she'll be wearing the dress that she wore in Suits, but I do think she'll be, and I think, you know, also there's a lot of, she's got to live up to what Princess Kate wore, you know, which is was a most amazing dress by Sarah Burton, you know, fantastic. And again, even with Pippa Middleton, you know, that dress was talked about for years afterwards. So I think there's a lot of pressure on her. And I think also she has to look traditionally English, but also, as we've just said, she's American. So American style is a little bit different from the UK style. So I suspect there'll be a bit of a fusion between the two, and hopefully the crew will be happy.
She'll probably tear a page out of Kate's book, actually. Lace is still very much in, and she's simple. It's a May wedding, so spring, but I don't think she'll get away with being too revealing. I think she'll probably still go for something long-sleeved.
The guest list, of course, is going to be much speculated upon in the months leading up to the wedding. I'm told that the Queen has told the couple that they are to draw up the list of who they want to be there. It's going to be a smaller wedding than William and Kate's. They had 2,000 people at Westminster Abbey. Meghan and Harry will have 800, which is still a sizable wedding. And of course, it's going to be fascinating to see who turns up. Meghan will bring that sort of injection of Hollywood. You know, I'm sure we will see some of her co-stars from Suits and actor friends from, you know, the years that she's worked in Hollywood. Of course, she's got very famous friends. She's close to Serena Williams, she's close to Boris Becker. Harry's got famous friends. Elton John is incredibly close to Prince Harry.
I suspect that Obama will be at the wedding, which will be quite interesting because he will be there and Trump won't be there.
Harry and Meghan are also causing a few headaches for the royal guard. Expect to see a few detours from the traditional wedding do's and don'ts.
The rumor on the street is that Meghan is going to be giving a speech at her own wedding, which is a big protocol no-no.
Regardless of what it took to arrive at this point in Harry and Meghan's relationship, one thing is for certain, that on May 19th, 2018, a Disney fairy tale will come to life as a prince turns a lovely young lady into a real-life princess.